What is this?
Bullshit.
Videos of a more serious or angry nature would start to spring up at this point. Those of raid leaders chewing out members for failing and properly performing the mechanics of a boss fight.
Well,
Crush him was fair and turret.
Who the fuck was that? Crush him! What the fuck? Whelps! Left side! Even side! Many whelps! Now handle it!
oh my god.
Fuck!
The most prolific of which being Dives, the raid leader of the guild, Wipe Club. Onyxia, at this point, had been slain by numerous guilds, and after some unsuccessful attempts, one of the members decided to record what would later become one of the biggest meltdowns in history, the Onyxia Wipe animation.
That's a fucking 50 DKP minus! What the fuck was that shit?
Much like Leroy, the animation would quickly become popular, and it highlighted the frustrating side of coordinating 40 people and clearing the challenging raids.
Did one thing of watching old ass WoW videos from like seeing it in the video and then how I remember it and then playing it now. Videos made it seem like it was so much older looking and this and that. It's crazy to feel like when you play it today, just that it's like, wow, that was really what the old game looked like. The old game was actually extremely polished and very well done, which is like kind of a trip. If you've never really played hardcore or classic and actually tried to play it, it's very...
Don't play like you're just fucking going through the
oh,
motions.
this doesn't
You'll
feel
get your
nearly as
goddamn
old as
loot
it
eventually.
is.
Oh, damn it! Fucking bullshit!
Yeah, I know. Well, we're all gonna get attacked because we have no warlock here. Nice job, you fucking idiot!
Hey, shut the fuck up! You stupid fuck! Stop talking!
These videos would paint players in a much less flattering light, as many
Dude, no one talks like that anymore. Like you cannot talk like that anymore. Now you're getting suspended for saying anything to anybody. Nobody talks like that. When is the last time you were on a live stream and you heard someone talk like that? Like ever. Nobody is talking like that anymore. Literally. Back in the day, tons of streamers were tweaking out, freaking out. You just can't say this anymore. It's like weird to even listen to. It's like, oh my god.
Many people would become so obsessed that they would shirk real-life responsibilities and fall out of contact with friends, quit work or school, and in the most extreme cases cause harm to themselves or others. In Korea of June of 2005, the 4-month-old child of a couple would suffocate when left unsupervised for several hours as the parents were playing World of Warcraft in an internet cafe. The phrase World of Warcraft was coined, shedding light on the dark side of video game addiction, particularly that of MMOs and the consequences of obsession, something that the media was not shy of reporting, as World of Warcraft, due to its popularity, would find itself at the center of this war against video game addiction.
Computer games, he's playing them an incredible 16 hours a day. His mother says his personality has changed and that he's become moody and violent, and his addiction is tearing the family apart.
Dude, this was so weird when everyone treated like being a video game player like there was something massively severely wrong with you. And now like all this shit is so normalized. It's like, oh yeah, bro, I play the game like 10 plus hours every single day, infinitely. But like back then it was like you had like a serious illness. Like it was like completely foreign to people that like you would sit on your computer all day.
To many, it was more than a game. It was
But
a
it's
virtual
like,
life with
dude,
the graphical
like,
interface.
that's basic shit now.
It attracted people from all walks of life and blended them together.
Bro, stop eating on stream. Not the best angle to attract new viewers when they see you chomping.
In the
Big rock in
chaos
that
of this
resub.
online world. News of the Burning Crusade remained to be scarce, as it was still under NDA
True.
in the Friends and Family Alpha.
Is it bad to
Blog
be eating on
posts
stream?
teasing new features would be shared scarcely, but otherwise, it was still largely a mystery outside of what was shared at the 2005 BlizzCon. The excitement was palpable, and players from all over the world couldn't wait to get into the Outland. The beta test for the expansion started not too long after, as players got to discover and explore its features, and shortly after, World of Warcraft would become the focus of the cartoon series South Park with their Make Love Not Warcraft episode. The episode detailed the boys' fight against a hacker antagonist and their struggle with video game addiction and instant success. Many years later, series co-creator Trey Parker detailed his worries with the episode, revealing that he even tried to get it pulled as he feared that it simply wasn't funny. But as history has shown, the episode would become an instant success, and despite the fact that the series at this point now has over 300 episodes, it remains to be one of their most popular to this day.
Looks like you're about to get pwned. Yeah!
What a legendary video. Oh my god, look how sick this is. Kidding me?
January 16th finally came, and it marked the beginning of a new era, the official end of vanilla World of Warcraft. People lined up outside of stores and tents in the freezing cold, launch parties were held, and the community was stronger than ever and pulled together with their one shared trait, their fear of women. Their collective love for the game. At this point, it had amassed roughly 8 million subscribers by the expansion's release.
Dude, do people get this excited about anything ever nowadays? At all? What would you line up for in real life at this point? I literally could not think of a single thing I would sit and line up for to do that, like ever. Anything. That is so insane, like just seeing shit like that. That people used to do things like that, and that was sick. That was great.
Never once reporting a loss and holding on to the lion's share of the market.
Look at this chart, bro. WoW decimated everything.
8 million subscribers by the expansion's release.
RuneScape, Lineage 2, Lineage 1, Aeon. I mean, this is just a slaughter. And people ever try to compare these games, it's crazy. It's not even close. Like, look at this chart. Like, this is...
Never once reporting a loss and holding on to the lion's share of the market. In the background stirred some serious competition, however. Mythic Entertainment, who developed the Dark Age of Camelot, sought to compete against Blizzard with an MMORPG adaptation of the renowned Warhammer series. Due to its similar fantasy setting, holding orcs, magic, elves, and wizards, many thought it to be the direct competitor to World of Warcraft, and deemed it to be one of the first of many would-be WoW killers during the time. Another such game was The Age of Conan, the Hyborian Adventures, developed by Funcom, who is mostly known in the MMO community for Anarchy Online in 2001. Its selling points would be impeccable graphics at the time, and a new and fresh combat system in a dark and visceral world, featuring the fatality mechanic, where players could execute each other in brutal fashion, often described as the Mortal Kombat of MMORPGs. And The Lord of the Rings Online by Turbine was also in development.
I can't believe
an
how
MMO
much
of
better
one of the
WoW
most
is in all
celebrated
these
franchises
games.
in nerd culture history.
How did all of these games do it so terribly? How could they be so much fucking worse? It's like, it's unbelievable to me. Literally, like, I still, even to this day, moving around in any other MMO is so awful. They literally just can't even figure it out. Like, they're so far off. The biggest problem in every MMO game is that when you move around, you can't even tell you're moving your character, and then you can't tell when you're attacking somebody. It's very confusing understanding if your abilities are landing, especially if there's like crowd control and there's all these random buffs. You literally can't even tell if you're fucking hitting people. And it's like, dude, we're in 2025 with all this research and development and this. And it's like, dude, this is the worst combat system in every other game. It is infinitely subpar to WoW. Even running in a circle in WoW is more satisfying than playing any other MMO. And that's why WoW is what it is, I think. Because all the other games are they're just so bad. Like, you just can't even tell what's
posed
going on.
as a serious threat
How can you not tell what's
Blizzard
going on with your own character?
Though
Like,
these contenders would be far off from release, the competition was beginning to get fierce, and to stave them off, the Burning Crusade had to be as exceptional as its predecessor. Months and months of doomsaying was put to the test. Did the Burning Crusade kill the World of Warcraft? Of course, the answer is no. The expansion was a major...
I was about to just show you what's going on in old school RuneScape, but I'm not going to do that.
Major success, and the subscription base rose even more rapidly as players explored the dangerous reaches of the Outland. The classes...
Guys, we don't actually compare RuneScape to WoW, right? Can we, like, we're not being serious, right? I mean, guys, that's just such an insane thing to say. Remotely close at all, ever.
Evolved, and the gap between them was lessened while still retaining the features
RuneScape,
that
like,
made
isn't
them special.
even a game, bro.
The raids were more challenging.
RuneScape is some shit that you have open when you're trying to not pay attention to it. That's what it is. RuneScape is just
the bosses more complex and offering more to conquer to the ever-growing subscriber base. And the raiding scene itself proved to be even more difficult for players than what they had encountered in the base game, with many lists today naming a plethora of Burning Crusade bosses as the hardest in the game's history, even over 14 years later, with some of them going unkilled by 99% of the player base until Blizzard intervened themselves to make them easier.
I was gonna say, oh, this game looks pretty good, and this is fucking WoW. I'm like, yeah, this actually looks solid. I like this layout. And I was like, oh, I'm looking at WoW. That's why. I was like, wait, how could this feels like I can kind of see what's going on.
Expansion today is remembered for having an extensive process for gaining entry to the raids called Attunement. A large series of story-based quests served as an alternate form of character progression, and players would rarely find themselves with nothing to do. The PvP system had evolved to be more competitive with the new Arena mode, where players create custom teams and battle
Arena, the
in
greatest game
small-scale
mode ever
matches to
invented
the death,
in the history of
setting
gaming.
the stage for future competitive events in Blizzard's attempt to gain a foothold into the growing esports scene. The Alliance, for the first time, got to experience a new class to them, the Shaman, and for the Horde, the Paladin, both with 2 new races added to the game, the Draenei and the Blood Elf. 5-man dungeons rose back to the forefront with the advent of the more challenging heroic difficulty. The expansion was packed with features and upgrades in its design, and stands as one of Blizzard's most critically acclaimed releases even to this day. The Lord of the Rings also saw its release in 2007 to serve as competition for World of Warcraft, and although receiving favorable reviews at the time, it couldn't compare to the size and scope of WoW, selling under 200,000 copies in the first months of release, and dwindling shortly thereafter. The game does still run today, supported by a niche community, and is hovering around 40,000 active players at the time of this video. So, the Burning Crusade pressed on, undaunted, and in the following BlizzCon in August, the next expansion, The Wrath of the Lich King, was announced.
I mean,
players were teased of the land of Northrend, where they had once visited in the events of Warcraft 3. It's here where they would face off against Arthas Menethil as the Lich King.
the WoW
10 more
expansions were
levels,
so
a
fucking
new
huge when
class,
they came
the
out. It was
Death Knight,
so unbelievable.
new zones, and siege vehicle combat were
Actually,
just a few
so
of the many new
good. Everything
features
is
teased at the
so
convention.
good. I literally have
And due to the
goosebumps
success
right
of
now,
the Burning
even seeing
Crusade,
this shit.
there was little question if it would be
Nothing gives me
just as
goosebumps
good.
like that.
2008 came, and on the 1-year anniversary of the release of the Burning Crusade, World of Warcraft hit a landmark 10 million subscribers, absolutely dwarfing any
Packing that
and
sub.
all competition. The up-and-coming contender,
WoW the biggest
Age of
video game of all
Conan,
time?
saw
I
its
think it might be,
release in
honestly.
May of 2008 and received
Mighty think
generally
that's up.
positive reviews by the media.
I think
and it
WoW's the
sold
greatest
over
video
1
game ever
million
made.
copies
Seriously.
by the end of its
It's
release
like the
month,
longest running.
though ultimately
Everybody's
the
played it.
game had
Everyone
failed
knows what
to
it is.
retain
Anyone
this
who's anything
impressive
about games
surge
knows
of
what WoW is.
subscribers. Although reviewers worldwide had praised the game, the player base condemned it as being unfinished and rushed as subscriptions quickly declined, and just 1 year later, Funcom would perform a fatality on 31 out of its 42 servers. Much like The Lord of the Rings Online, the game still holds a dedicated yet niche following, by and large falling short of being the WoW killer that many predicted that it would be. In July, in a bombshell announcement at the height of the game's popularity, the power of the dark side could be resisted no longer, as Blizzard's parent company, Vivendi, announced a merger with Activision. Already having gained a reputation for excessive monetization and driving franchises and
Is that what
developers to
happened?
an early grave, many were dismayed at the news, fearing that the same would become true for their beloved franchises, including the World of Warcraft. Along with EA, they would gain the reputation of exploiting the player base to the fullest extent, and spearheads today one of the largest focus on cash shops and pay-to-win game design. And just 1 year later, in September of 2009, Activision Blizzard would release the paid faction change service, and 1 month after that, the paid race change service, along with in-game collectible pets. These services were seen by many as an affront on the integrity of the game, and although not terribly impactful by themselves,
probably pretty good for the game though, I think. You know, race changing shit, pets, like people like love that shit. They love that shit. I mean, right? I mean, that's...
It was believed that they would serve as a gateway for more damaging paid services to be introduced later. In September of 2008, the release date for the Wrath of the Lich King expansion became set in stone for November of the same year. Just as it was back in 2006, the clock began ticking for players to finish their activities in the Burning Crusade before the content was made to be irrelevant, and due to the difficulty of the raiding scene in general, they had their hands full. There was quite a long drought between the final patch of the Burning Crusade and the launch of Wrath, nearly 8 months, but players didn't seem to mind due to the success and lingering challenge that the expansion had to offer. Those who thought otherwise, though, sought to fill in this void with the release of the highly anticipated Warhammer Online, which saw its release in September. But was it enough to succeed where the Lord of the Rings Online and Age of Conan failed? The game saw similar numbers to the Age of Conan, selling 1.2 million copies at launch and starting off with a solid subscriber base of 800,000 players. But similar to Funcom's debacle, it simply wasn't ready.
Like, this is just garbage. Like, what are we looking at? Like, this shit is so bad, bro. Even in WoW, this shit is so bad. Like, large group PvP is never fucking good. It's like, but maybe it has to be in the game or something. Maybe some people actually enjoy this or something. I have never enjoyed this. You're like lagging the whole fucking time. Like, even look at his UI. Is he casting? Is he moving? Who is he targeting? Where is the guy on the screen? I don't even know. I have no idea what I'm even looking like.
Performance issues overshadowed what could have been a great experience,
CC by
and
something,
players that have grown accustomed to World of Warcraft's finely tuned and polished combat system immediately noticed a lack of fluidity with its gameplay.
Right there.
Additionally, the game would suffer from major scandals, such as erroneously charging subscribers for years of game time in a single day, with some racking up charges and overdraft fees into the thousands. Similar to the Age of Conan,
imagine Blizzard charge you $1,000
this early surge of players, and servers were shut down, and the subscriber base dropped even lower than that of their 2001 MMO, The Dark Age of Camelot. The game officially shut down in 2013, but many deemed it to be truly dead just 1 year after its release.
Damn. Worldwide global countdown release, like...
Shortly after, the Wrath of the Lich King expansion saw its release, and Blizzard would once more break sales records. Players charged into Northrend with new zones to explore, dungeons and raids to conquer, and a new class to discover. The Death Knight was what everyone expected and more. A lot more. Way too much, in fact, as many saw them to be far too powerful on release. They would later be tuned down in upcoming patches. Replayability was amplified as the achievement system was implemented, and players could collect points, titles, mounts, and more through this new feature aimed towards completionists. It would receive positive reviews of its many new features and improvements, and the subscriptions continued their upward trend, eventually peaking at 12 million. Just as with the Burning Crusade, it seemed to be unstoppable, though it would be where the first sign of weakness showed. Through the numbers that have been made public, there wasn't a single moment where Wrath had lost subscriptions between reports, but it was also the first expansion where they had stopped gaining subscribers, as they hovered around 11 to 12 million throughout the course of the expansion, and as shown, it wasn't due to any of these would-be WoW killers. In August of the same year, the raiding scene expanded in a big way as the third raid tier for the expansion, The Trial of the Crusader, would release with the heroic difficulty setting. Previously, if players sought extra challenge with the encounters, they could impose boss-specific hurdles or restrictions upon themselves for bonus loot, achievements, and bragging rights. Players would now instead toggle this optional difficulty setting before entering the raid, and every boss within would deal more damage, take more damage, and gain extra mechanics in exchange for better quality loot. This, along with the Mythic raiding mode to be introduced later, would become a landmark change in the core design of the game, aimed to increase accessibility by greatly lowering the base normal difficulty and funneling those seeking a greater challenge into this optional difficulty setting. This change in design would later be accelerated in the next expansion, the Cataclysm, which would be unveiled in BlizzCon 2009.
That will very literally change the face of the world of Azeroth as you know it.
BlizzCon is so fucking
Ladies
sick.
and gentlemen, I give you World of Warcraft Cataclysm!
Dude, BlizzCon in real life is like unexplainable.
The world of
it's actually
Azeroth
just
was
so
about to
magical.
change for
It's
good,
ridiculous.
as the entire
Anything
old
they
world was
release at
deemed
BlizzCon is
to be
so
outdated
legendary.
by 2009 standards.
It's like peak
this expansion's
WoW.
villain.
If you are a WoW fan and you have never gone to a BlizzCon, it's like it should be like a bucket list fucking item. It's like, yo, I have to make it to a BlizzCon. I have to see one. I have to. Literally, like, it's actually magical. It's unexplainable.
Deathwing would ravage the Eastern Kingdoms in Kalimdor, reshaping them visually and mechanically by reworking each quest. Players would be able to explore all of these changes from the comfort of their flying mounts, which were now enabled in the old world. Two new races, the Worgen for the Alliance and the Goblin for the Horde, would also make their debut, as well as a reworked talent system. The game was to go over its biggest makeover to date, and whether it was for the better or worse was yet to be seen. December marked the month of another hallmark feature being added to the game, the Dungeon Finder. No longer did players have to travel the world to run to their favorite dungeons, as this tool matchmaked them together and teleported the party directly to the entrance. At the time, this feature was received with overwhelmingly positive feedback and a welcome quality of life improvement. Though restricted to players only on their server at the time of its launch, it would later be opened up to other servers, which had the unintended side effect of alienating the community from each other. Previously, having to manually form groups had served as a critical and natural way for players to meet one another and make friends, and they would soon learn the downsides of automating the process. By handling the formation of the group automatically, social interaction was replaced with convenience, and the social aspect critical to MMO gameplay suffered as a result. By itself, this negative impact of the system would remain relatively minor, but in the coming years, players would notice a trend of eliminating these critical social structures in the name of convenience and at the cost of the game's sense of community, which many claim to be one of the biggest features to which it owed its success.
What do you guys think? Was it fried? Bucky to that sub, Nick to that sub, Chin to that sub? Just like social media IRL, now we're all too done to talk to each other?
Stop subbing now. Pretty prime number.
Bro, I don't know, like, it's hard to actually know, like, there's so many other factors going on that influence video games that's not even just to do with, like, the video game itself. Like, just life and getting older and all this shit happening.
Missed the part I wanted to see
Like,
as an AD.
I feel like ease of use just had to happen. Even in, like, the streaming space and the content creation space, people no longer want to sit there and sweat it out and grind it out and try to learn how to be the best at a game anymore. Because most people now are older and they have jobs, sometimes multiple jobs, and there's no time for these people to sit here and play the game for 10 hours a day anymore. It's like, it's completely unfeasible compared to how it used to be. And, like, games are as difficult as they've ever been. Now there's all these keybinds. It's super fucking fast paced. It's this and that. And everyone is just like, so the idea of even playing games and shit has completely changed as time has gone on. So it's like all these changes that have happened. It's like, I'm not even sure if a video game could ever be like how it used to be. Like, because majority of the player base, they just cannot play the game like that. There's no way. There's too much shit going on in life now. And it's like, yeah, so I feel like all these design changes stuff, like, people, they must have realized that shit coming or something. is going on, ladies and gents? WoW is dead. Keck W. Jenkins in that sub. Will WoW be around for our whole lifetime? I don't know. Do you guys think there's ever a chance that Blizzard would just be like, all right, fuck WoW, we're just going to let this die? Fuck, all this sunlight's frying me. I feel like there's no chance they would do that. WoW is just way game for them to like not put a shit ton of effort into trying to like at least do something. At least that's what I think. I mean, like, how could they? WoW has funded everything that Blizzard's ever done forever, infinitely. Like, yeah, I feel like that would be crazy if they just ever like say, yeah, guys, we're gonna turn the servers off. I don't know about that. They stop updating the game, but it'd be a crime to delete the game and everything people earned. Yeah, I feel like there's no way. $100 mounts just went crazy. Yeah, I don't know if they could like try to actually bring the game back or revive it or change it. I don't know. People definitely have a weird take about WoW, how WoW's downfall needs to be studied. If anything, its continued success should be. It's had ups and downs, but 20 years of anything as a service making money is exceptional. How many TV series make it 10 years, much less 20? Yeah, I mean, I think WoW is actually the greatest video game ever made. For it to still be around at this time and, like, still have new shit and still have people playing, like, you really can't say that about, like, any other games. It's, like, not even close. So, I don't know. I don't actually know. Let's see. Should we watch something else? I don't know if we watch the rest of this. What, like... They changed the forums.
The community would also see changes outside of the game. In July of 2010, Blizzard unveiled their new Real ID system, where they're supporting forums for all of their games, not just World of Warcraft, would no longer display character names when posting, but rather real names tied to the account. Players and onlookers alike reacted with concern of Blizzard's disregard of basic privacy rights, deeming that their actions would essentially dox the entire forum community. Doxing is the act of unearthing someone's personal information, such as their name or address, with the ultimate goal of real-life harassment. Today, the advent of swatting shows the repercussions of those whose personal information was leaked. For a company to do the work for them was seen as extremely dangerous. Flame wars and online disputes, past, present, and future, would serve as vessels for real-life harassment, they argued. They stated that the reason for the change was to cut down on forum trolling, their logic being that if someone's real name was tied to their post, they'd think more carefully about how they treat others, and that, quote, removing the veil of anonymity, typical to online dialogue, will contribute to a more positive forum environment and connect the Blizzard community in ways that they haven't been connected before. Another community manager put it to the test, and in an effort to quell the players' fear, he posted his real-life name. Within 1 day, players found and published his address.
Oh my god. Morgana than that major raid. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, guys, was Real ID a good idea? I don't even understand what... Bro, the WoW forums are awful. Dude, honestly, most forum posters are insufferable human beings. Like, they are all idiots, I want to say, in, like, every aspect. A lot of them, I'm just not even sure what to say about it, but, like, I read forums. There is so much misinformation and nonsense on forums. It is like a circle jerk of just echo chamber of moronicness and like all forums I read, bro. And I hate the forum. Have you guys ever read the WoW forums and seen what it looks like? Like, I can probably go right now. WoW forums. World of Warcraft forums. What's the latest, like, PvP forum? How do you even use this? Look, right here. I'll show you. We'll go right here. Gameplay. General discussion. PvP. Sure, let's check about arenas. Taking a break from PvP. This dude spelled with like break. B-R-A-K-E. 1600 is average. Let's see. The forums have been way too toxic about what ratings are considered good or not on here. Let me break it down for you as someone who actually plays the game. 1200 to 1500, okay, you kind of suck. 16 to 1700 where most people play. Okay, people that RMT for a boost are above 2100. 1800 to 1950 are insanely good players or hunters that worked hard without resorting to cheating. These forums are all just a bunch of people that pay to have their 2400s and look down on us real players that actually earn ratings. Newsflash, 80% of the people that queue Arena all season end up around 1700. This guy says, who hurt you? Whatever makes them feel more comfortable when the average rating since they implemented solo modes is like 2500. I am merely the bringer of uncomfortable truths. What do you consider honorable? Because I think only card swiping most of us are doing is that monthly sub. I think people care way too much about ratings, but I can tell you flatly that the Fox is a legitimately good player that earns their rating. Notice not even the Goblin Shaman has much to say to them. Good indicator. Are these guys just like friends on here? I got 1950 day 2, which was like 95th percentile, so I'm actually ultra glad material. I just choose not to push. Maybe we can play for fun and forget about the ratings. This thread's not that bad, but who is going on forums? Do you guys go on forums and like argue with people and shit? Like, here, let's go to a different forum, not a real. Let's go to like someone who's general discussion about the game. The gearing disparity is bad. Another DDoS attack. Let's see what they're saying. Why so many attacks lately? OMG, let the classic guild die already so we can play epic BG. These Twitch streamers need to stop streaming all the time. This why DDoS caused this. We pay real money of this game. Beast in me. Level 10 warrior. This guy. Like, or maybe DDoSers cannot DDoS. This guild attack narrative really doesn't make any sense. First, why would you burn a botnet on a game for no financial gain? Second, if you were targeting an individual guild, you would need to DDoS their individual IPs, not the whole network, which takes everyone out equally. Cheetahs always target the weakest antelopes. Large MMO games are very good targets because these servers themselves need to consume full throughput, and registering a Battle.net account is almost free. Increasing the difficulty of registration will reduce the number of players, and increasing server defense is also a huge expense. Paying terrorists will bring another group of terrorists. I guess they should buy temporary services to enhance server defense, but this is only temporary. In fact, being able to do such a DDoS also has a price, and there are not many enemies who can pay for it. Because everyone is jealous of America for the lols. You guys really forgot what people used to do this all the time just for the lols. Yeah, bro, we got to get off the fucking forums, guys. Like, I mean, what is happening here? Like, I'm closing this.
Phone number, age, and took to placing false pizza orders in his name, and even placed death threats, connecting him with the community in ways that he's never been connected before.
Nice.
Shortly after, the co-founder of Blizzard, Mike Morhaime, stepped in and announced that they had rescinded their plans of publishing the players' real names. In October, Blizzard pinned down a release date for the Cataclysm expansion, December 7th of the same year, and despite the controversy, the game in October would reach its peak subscriber count of 12 million. The holidays came, and the Day of Reckoning was at hand, and the world of Warcraft would suffer cataclysm in more ways than one.
Did you guys play Cata Release?
In addition to the retuned Old World, the talent system would also see an overhaul, altering the traditional freeform 3-tree talent system into specializations. Players would be forced to pick just one, and to lose access to many spells iconic to the other two. The trees as a whole would also be simplified, and the amount of points to invest reduced. Class and item balance in general would also be at the forefront of changes in the expansion. mostly through the form of
Dude,
removal.
WoW has gone through
Spell
so
rings
many
were removed,
phases of
and
like
all abilities now
adding abilities, removing abilities, simplifying, making it more difficult. I mean, they've tried everything. I don't know if too much about, like, right now we're on the end of it being too difficult on retail. There's too much shit going on. I felt like there was not enough going on, so it was like hard to
just
differentiate
add
this.
one
But
rank
now it's like
that's
we gotta
filled
like
with your level,
we have to
and
dial it
retrain
back. I think now we need
automatically,
simpler.
and much more. The Cataclysm expansion is seen by many to mark the point when the RPG and MMORPG was made to be lowercase, as it transformed into a much simpler version of an already straightforward game. As World of Warcraft strayed further and further away from its social and RPG roots, a community of private server players would grow larger and larger with each expansion. Independent groups took to hosting past versions of the game, the most prolific of which being of its original state, referred to as vanilla. Though its beginnings were humble, this private server community would eventually grow large enough to become a problem for Blizzard, and they would find themselves embroiled in legal battles to protect their IP from infringement, and would eventually influence a major developed project many years later. Regardless, they showed once more that they had no difficulty in selling expansions, as once again, they broke their own sales record with Cataclysm, selling a staggering 3.3 million copies on release day. But unlike the previous expansions, they had not seen an overall increase in subscribers post-release, instead remaining steady at the 12 million mark it had been stuck at since the beginning of 2009. And for the first time since its inception in 2004, the World of Warcraft would see a loss in reported subscribers. In fact, Cataclysm would fail to gain subscribers in a single reported quarter in its near 2-year run, discounting the release of the next expansion, The Mists of Pandora, which would be announced in October.
Wow. I thought Bob was sick. People like didn't like pandas.
The initial reaction would be very mixed. The theme of the expansion was so unexpected.
This was such a weird, like, was this like internet hatred era? When did the WoW player base become so like degenerate? I feel like the WoW player base is extremely problematic. Are all player bases like this? But like, dude, this was crazy that there could be a release of just like what year did MoP come out? Like, when was this? 2010? Like, when was internet trolling, like, at its peak? What, 2010? I'm in, like, middle school at that point. I feel like internet hating and internet trolling was catching a major peak back then of, like, what was happening and what was going on. It's just the internet growing. Is like, the internet was still pretty new back
that many thought it to be an out-of-season April Fool's joke. Players would explore the mysterious world of Pandora with a new race, the Pandarin, and a new class, the Monk. Dungeons were getting a special challenge mode to bring relevancy once more to 5-man content, and scenarios would be queuable micro-dungeons designed for 3 players, and the pet battle system was also implemented, a minigame reminiscent of the popular Pokemon franchise. As for the talent system, it would be simplified even further into the tier system, offering more impactful choices, but at a reduced quantity of just 6 points to invest. And, most controversially, cross-realm zones would eventually be implemented, where players of differing realms would be able to see and interact with one another. Due to the falling subscriber base brought on by the Cataclysm, there were far too many servers running for the dwindling player base, and as a result, the worlds were starting to become barren. By grouping servers together, Blizzard aimed once more to breathe life into the world of Azeroth. While many looked at the expansion as something new and fresh, many more would be immediately turned off by its aesthetics, and due to the downward trend in subscriptions, skepticism if it would be a success was at an all-time high. This was still far into the future though, and the current focus remained to be Cataclysm, which at this point was still steadily losing subscribers. In November, along with the final raid, Dragon Soul, the LFR system would see its release. Similar to the Dungeon Finder released in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, this would allow players to matchmake with others in a queue-based raiding mode, doubling down on their design of trading away critical social and RPG functions for the sake of convenience and accessibility. To accommodate for the increased disorganization that came with queue-based matchmaking, the difficulty would be lowered even further than that of the base normal difficulty. It was from this point forward that players no longer needed to even join a guild to experience the endgame content. They didn't need to read strategies, and they didn't even need to speak a single word, in fact, as Blizzard deemed it an issue that 100% of the player base were not completing these raids in their entirety.
Should everybody be able to complete the raids and participate in the endgame? No. I kind of feel like they have to, especially with like social media and the rise of content creation. Like, if you're just seeing all this shit and you just can't like experience it ever, what's the point of even playing? Like, I feel like it was so the game's difficulty also increased massively with the expansions as they went on. Like, the raids had much more mechanics. And a lot of WoW players are like, they don't talk to people very much. It's hard for them to do much. And I don't know. It feels like, I mean, it's fucking hard, bro. I'm wiping in SOD. I'm a professional player of 20 years. I'm getting farmed in SOD all these years later. Right? Like, that's, so imagine this shit back then, like, trying to do it. Like, I don't even know what to say about it. I feel like everyone should be able to experience the full aspect of the game. I don't think that's crazy to say, right?
The accomplishment of clearing a raid would be more accessible than ever before, but as a result, the accomplishment would mean nothing from this point forward. During this time, another would-be WoW killer was beginning to generate interest. Star Wars Galaxies at this point had been shut down in order to bolster the subscriber base of Star Wars: The Old Republic. Developed by BioWare and published by... It would be attempt number 2 for Star Wars on the massively multiplayer scale. This installment promised a unique and fully voice-acted campaign for each of their classes, a space shooter component with a customizable ship, a thriving...
LFR is hard as shit. I think a lot of you have never done an LFR retail raid. I would argue that LFR is actually more difficult than maybe... LFR has somehow managed to become more fucking tough than doing the actual raid yourself, because there are mechanics on like the last boss where you will actually sit there and wipe endlessly. Like, you cannot cheese kill the boss. Everybody is going to get killed. It's like, fuck, my mic is cutting out. Which raid was it? The last boss in the tier, you would actually sit there and wipe for hours. There's multiple of them. Look, people just said 3 different raids. It's crazy. It's actually insane. LFR is more difficult than you would ever imagine. You cannot just go into LFR and kill the fucking boss. It's actually more difficult than playing the game. And classic raids, in reality, classic raids are the simplest thing that World of Warcraft has ever offered. A big thing that misses the mark is that the game has gotten massively more difficult as the expansions ramp up, because you have a lot more buttons, there's a lot more things going on, and there's a lot more punishment, and then your gear matters a lot more. You got to be playing the right class. You got to kind of have some shit down. Otherwise, it's like you're actually just, you can't do anything. But in classic WoW, you can literally play the game naked and beat everything without gear on. But you can't do that in any other version of the game. Not even close. So everything matters now more in the newer versions of the game.
Endgame for PvE and PvP,
nothing matters.
And perhaps most importantly, it was during the first time where the reigning champion showed weakness. While ultimately the previous contenders failed on their own merits, it can be argued that the tremendous success of the World of Warcraft during their debut certainly made them look worse in comparison. Now that this weakness was showing though, the timing was ideal. Would the Old Republic succeed where its predecessors failed? Ex-subscribers, disillusioned with the direction that the game had taken throughout the Cataclysm, looked at the Old Republic as the true successor this time. Players had been doomsaying the imminent demise.
People like that. They want an easy game they can drink a beer and mess around with. Yeah, the problem. Gaming is way too difficult now. Games have gotten way too hard. All games are way too hard now. I don't know if there's a way that every video game can somehow make their shit easier or simpler or easier to get into. But there's too much going on in every video game now, for sure. For like, that's why like there's no new players on anything. Ever. Example, retail arena. When is the last time someone new has tried to get into PvP? Like who is a new League of Legends player? Right? No one. There are no new players going into these games. It's because it's too fucking difficult. It's like, bro, I've been playing. Like these same people have been playing this shit forever. Right? Zico is a new League player. Guys, Zico is a bad example. Okay, Zico is a professional gamer who's one of the best players in the world at video games. And it's his full-time job to play video games. I'm saying for like actual people who don't play video games every day of their lives for 20 years straight. Like actual, just maybe like a normie picks up League. It's like, yo, I just started playing League. It's like, you know, someone you work with or something, or someone you go to school with. It's like, yeah, I don't really play games, but I'm going to try to log in and play Arena. And it's just like, oh, right. Yeah, no one's ever said that to you, because it's like, that's not how it works. You either were playing back then, or you don't play. Which is a massive problem. Massive problem.
Nico, what's up?
Just started League. Nice, Kobe. You don't want my take on professional games, you ban me? Some people say that pro gaming and content creation has killed video games. I mean, it's definitely, I think it's probably had a negative impact overall, but I don't know. I don't see how anyone could say that video games haven't gotten too difficult. If you just like if you've played it yourself, you would instantly be like, yeah, this is a huge difference from playing classic WoW to logging on retail and seeing anything at all. Or if you've ever played back then and seen what it is now, it's crazy.
Of World of Warcraft ever since its launch in 2004.
There's way more sweats in gaming too, yeah.
The game's downward trend would support their claims. So, the moment of truth came, the launch arrived, and like many other MMOs before it, the Old Republic launched too early. In an attempt to release it during the holiday season, it was rushed out and would suffer from technical issues, game-breaking bugs, and questionable design decisions, most notable of which is their use of the hero engine, which proved to be poor in an MMO environment. There would be a short delay between a player casting a spell and that spell actually landing. An issue they attempted to rectify by tying an animation for each ability to make it seem more natural. As a result, though, the combat felt very sluggish and awkward, and those used to the crisp and smooth nature of the World of Warcraft's combat system noticed a huge and immediate downgrade in quality. This, combined with other disappointing features, such as their spaceship component being entirely on rails, hindered its success in its crucial launch period. The game had sold over 2 million copies and held 1.7 million subscribers, which was around a sixth of the World of Warcraft subscriptions at the time, the closest that any recent MMO came to rivaling WoW's popularity since its launch in 2004. But much like the Lord of the Rings Online, the Age of Conan, and Warhammer Online, the Star Wars The Old Republic...
Bro, it's crazy like how hard everyone's trying to rip off Star Wars and the fan base of Star Wars. Like all these games, like same with Lord of the Rings, all these like spin-offs and all this shit, like, and then it just like tarnishes the brand of what it is. Like Takumi, I see you. Yeah, no one goes into games blind, which sucks. And this guy's like, you get ADHD, Zoomer combat, or Boomer combat. I think the best kind of combat is, it's not the ADHD shit. Like, it's terrible. It's horrible to watch. It's not even very fun to play. It's not very engaging. It just feels like you need to find a mix of, like, simplistic, not a lot, more Boomer-like, but enough to where you can actually differentiate yourself amongst other players. Like, kind of like in Plunderstorm, if you guys ever played that, it was like you only had a couple buttons, but like you could use those buttons better than other people. But like something maybe a little more complex than that. But yeah, the way it is now is ridiculous. Like you're hitting a million buttons to do like nothing, and it's like, dude, this is completely chalked. It's got to be easy to learn, hard to master. Yeah, there's got to be some sort of gap between player skill. Otherwise, like, what am I even playing for? Super fraud.
Public suffered a similar fate, and the subscriptions quickly plummeted. Not even 8 months later, it would convert to the free-to-play model, often seen as the death sentence of MMOs. Today, the game holds a total of 5 servers, once again coming nowhere near being the WoW killer it was predicted to be.
You were the chosen one! It was said that you would destroy the
World of Warcraft.
Not join them!
Time marched on, and the Mists of Pandora expansion would release in the month of September, and for the first time since the release of the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, they saw an increase in subscriptions, though the eagerness of the player base...
That's why League has lasted. Bro, I honestly do not know how the fuck League of Legends has lasted this long. League of Legends is shit. That game is ass. I think they've somehow fucking brainwashed everybody into playing that game. Because League of Legends had the worst matchmaking I have ever experienced or ever seen. You meet the dumbest, most moronic players on League of Legends. Like, you learn very quickly you are just at the mercy of your teammates. There is nothing you can do. The most toxic human beings I've ever met in my life are League of Legends players and people on that game. But that game has been in a massive downfall for a very long time. But I never understood how that game has withstood the test of time to what it is, because that shit is just... Yeah, it's just not it. Leonard, think that resub? Not it.
This was notably diminished, as this would be the first expansion to fail in breaking sales records for Blizzard upon release, falling 30% below than that of Cataclysm. Barring this initial surge, they would be unable to halt the downward trend that had begun since the launch of Cataclysm, as subscribers would quickly drop from 10 million at launch to 9 million, then 8, and around 6.8 at its lowest point, a drop of over 30%, and the players were starting to feel the effect of a world that grew less active with each passing day. Crossrealm officially saw its release, which would make the world seem sprawling once more, but once again at the expense of the server's community, which would be present only in name from this point forward. Seeing the same players and guilds on your server consistently turned out to be an integral part of establishing a community that was only realized once it was taken away. The world once more had players in it, but due to the large amount of servers that would be grouped together, players scarcely saw or recognized other players from previous adventures. The basis to form a community, which had been a key reason for its success, was now a distant memory. The world was in a predicament, and Blizzard had a difficult problem to solve. A nearly empty world with little community, or a full world, ironically enough, with no community. Though innocent enough on launch, Crossrealm is seen today as a necessary evil for...
Trade chat is filled with selling boosts. Trade chat is filled with selling boosts, no items. How come every game just has a shit ton of bots, too? That's a big thing. The second you log on any random-ass MMO, the whole trade chat is all bots. There's no one talking or ever speaking. Everybody's... Like, I guess WoW has always had bots, like, forever. But maybe the bots just have to be there or something. But, like, that's another... Yeah.
As a necessary evil for a problem, which true solution lies in recapturing subscribers now lost, an issue that Blizzard would struggle with for years to come, as the once iconic MMORPG now barely resembled an MMO due to its destroyed social structures, and barely an RPG due to its abandoned RPG elements, which would be taken a step further in March of 2013, as the game saw another major change with its first instance of forged loot. Released with the Throne of Thunder raid, loot had the potential to have an increased quality, regardless of the difficulty at which the players defeated the bosses. Having previously lost longevity in the raiding scene through the reduced base difficulty, they had hoped to
9
regain
hours
it
in
via
queue.
randomized loot. And although it was relatively tame at the time of its release, this foraging system would later be seen by many to get out of hand and help diminish and confuse the reward structure that had been standard for the game for 8 years at that point. Time passed, patches released, new raids and systems debuted, and much changed with the expansion in the year of 2013. Something that didn't, though, was this ongoing downward trend of subscribers. In BlizzCon 2013, Blizzard would announce its next expansion, the Warlords of Draenor. The player base would journey back to the world of Draenor, an alternate reality before it was corrupted into what they knew as the Outland in the Burning Crusade expansion.
Old, bro.
It's here where they would establish forward bases, known as garrisons, and launch a campaign against Garrosh Hellscream, the leader of the United Orc Army,
yes, and you
known
guys are
as the Iron
fucking
Horde,
old,
who
bro.
were set to invade the land of Azeroth.
Not me,
At
though.
this point, the
Not
private
me,
server
though.
community had gained considerable
Oh, I've been there.
traction
Once
as
or twice,
players
or
yearned for
5
the
or
game
6 or
that
7
had
times.
originally captivated them, and were becoming more and more unruly as the retail version strayed further and further away from its roots, and they began campaigning Blizzard to officially develop and support this past version of the game. In a Q&A panel during the convention, one such player asked for an official answer on the possibility of a legacy server. The question was fielded by J. Allen Brack, at the time a production director for World of Warcraft, and he delivered this now infamous answer.
Have you ever thought about adding servers for previous expansions as they were then?
Damn.
No.
Damn.
And by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't. Remember when you had to spam cities and say, need a tank, need a tank, need a tank during the Burning Crusade days? You don't remember that because now you just push a button that says go to the dungeon. You don't want to do that.
Though the quote would draw immediate ire of the legacy community, it would prove to be an integral moment in its development, serving as a rallying cry of sorts and bringing more and more.
Dude, that was such a legendary moment when they announced Vanilla WoW. I was there in person when they did that shit. That was like one of the biggest releases I've ever heard when they announced that shit in real life. I don't know if you guys have seen that video. My most iconic releases are the Vanilla WoW release at BlizzCon, like the classic WoW, and then the Diablo mobile. Fucking legendary. Those are the two biggest moments I've ever seen at BlizzCon history. Literally, there must have been like 20, 30,000 people in that building listening to that, and it was like the most excitement I've ever heard, and the cinematic was insane, the delivery, and then that dude had to come out and say what was happening. The same dude who everyone started shitting on, he's like,
Attention on the possibilities
we're doing it,
of
it's
developing
happening,
such a version
and then
of
it
the
was
game.
like huge,
The answer
it
was
was
seen
crazy.
as dismissive and out of touch, especially considering the fact that private servers at this point had grown to new levels of popularity. And with this dismissive answer, the questions started turning into demands and discussion of its viability or not, and served to fan the flames of a community becoming increasingly disillusioned of the World of Warcraft and Blizzard in their current state.
boosted 90.
As the players were leaving, Blizzard had sought to recover financially through an increased focus and impact of their cash shop, and against all assurances previously made shortly after their merger with Activision, they would finally turn the corner in December of 2013 and officially implemented the cash shop in-game, and along with it came the most impactful service to date, the level boost. Leveling was now skippable, as players could pay $60 to immediately be fast-tracked to the maximum level and jump right into the endgame.
I level boosted everything
the most
always.
Impactful paid service
I have level
at that
boosted
point,
every
what
character
was at
ever
one point
instantly.
seen as a cornerstone of MMO design.
How many of you
was
guys have
now
bought a level boost?
skippable through an officially endorsed service. The consequence and investment
Did every single
of picking
person
a
buy a
class,
level boost?
investing
I've
time
literally
into
bought
it,
like 50
leveling
of them,
it,
maybe
and
more.
learning it were thrown away. Sacrificed
Everybody's
like
buying
many
level
other
boosts.
features for convenience, accessibility, and short-term financial gain, further damaging its already crippled RPG design.
So I can't tell, like, they come out with these features, and it's like, everyone wants to fucking utilize it, but is it because everyone else is utilizing it, or are we just a lot more into the than most other people to keep sticking around too? You know, it's like they're saying they have all these big sub counts. Like, how many of these people are actually just dedicated fucking WoW players who love the game, as opposed to some people who just tried it for like a little bit or something? What do you mean I'm the problem? What do you mean? Like, I feel like, guys, do we keep cutting out? Is it any better? We'll see it. We'll see it. One word every 10 minutes. Scuffed, silenced. You are the problem. How am I the problem, guys? This is... Sorry I make the game look so fun and so exciting and so thrilling that you feel like you have to level boost to try to keep playing and try to play what I'm playing. That's what's going on. I make this shit look fun.
The backlash was immediate, but little did players know, it was just the beginning, and the standards of paid advantage in the game would sink lower and lower in the coming years. Time passed, and two things remained constant: a decrease in subscriber count and stagnation. The final major patch of the expansion had released in September of the previous year, 2013, and other than the addition of the level boost, the game saw no updates until the Warlords of Draenor pre-patch in October of 2014, an astounding gap of 13 months in the game's development. This had marked the longest drought yet, and subscribers fled content drought. Was that real? As the Mists of Pandora failed to retain the migrating player base.
13 months? That's over a year.
November came, and with it, the launch of the Warlords of Draenor expansion. Despite the game's troubles, a combination of marketing and hype.
You guys, for those that don't know, I got rank 1 every single season in Mists of Pandaria. Season 12, 13, 14, 15. WoD came out. I got rank 1 every season in WoD, which is like 16, 17, 18, and maybe 19, and then going into the next expansion of Legion, I got it in 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, like 27. And then in Cataclysm too, I was also getting glad, you know, so just giving some background. So this is actually my time I was playing the game, so.
Led to a rather successful expansion launch sales-wise. Over 3.3 million players had
one of the most successful expansions
in
of all time,
ready to step through the Dark Portal for a second time, and subscriptions skyrocketed to 10.5 million, the highest it had been since the launch of the Mists of Pandaria, and it holds the record of the largest surge in subscribers for expansion launches. Though unfortunately for Blizzard, history would repeat itself in more ways than one, as once again they had failed to retain this boon as problems soon arose after launch.
Oh, that's nice. Every fucking server that I even play on is offline. Oh, yeah. It looks like mine aren't the only ones.
They had come under a DDoS attack as their servers were flooded
with
artificial traffic until they shut down from the strain. This would go on for several days as law enforcement investigated into the matter. Meanwhile, though, players would become increasingly frustrated as the game remained to be mostly unplayable. The culprits were eventually stopped, but the damage had been done, and the game experienced its worst launch since its initial release in 2004. What's more, once the issues subsided, players were met with what is now widely considered to be one of the worst expansions in the game's history. The main feature of the expansion, the garrison system, isolated players in their own instance, where they could recruit followers, start an herb garden, mine and craft, and even use the auction house with the correct buildings. Although convenient, it served as yet another feature to alienate an already fractured community from each other, and the game at times seemed as if it was single-player, a problem made worse by the massive hemorrhage of subscribers that was yet to come. Just as how the expansion broke subscription records on launch, it also broke records for lost subscriptions shortly after, as players saw little enjoyment from what was eventually ousted as an unfinished expansion, as many of the features previously teased.
Oh my god, Ashran. Oh, shit.
would be left on the
Oh,
cutting room
legendary.
floor, including new systems, 2 major cities, battlegrounds, another zone, and
That's
even
great times
an
in
entire
Ashran.
raid tier, to name just a few. Time between patches would grow even larger, and the patches themselves delivered less content. The expansion held a total of just 3
Blackrock
major
Foundry.
raids throughout its entirety, with every expansion preceding
Highball, that was a
having
cool
at least
raid.
4.
Forgot
The
about
combined
Ashran
effect
too.
of instanced garrisons and players flocking away made the new world seem dead, and so more and more servers
That WoW
would be
money
connected
changed
to
you,
each
bro.
other
I was playing
in
the
an
game
attempt
all
to
day
bring
long
life
back
back
then. I
into
played
the
more
dying
WoW
world,
back then than
as
ever.
subscriptions plummeted to an all-time low since its initial
5.5
rise in
million.
vanilla at 5.5 million. It was announced shortly after that they would no longer report subscription numbers, stating that there are better indicators of business performance. The message was clear. Where they had lost revenue in subscriptions, they gained several times over via the paid level boost. Success was no longer tied to a healthy player base, but rather revenue, and although looked at today as an embarrassing period in the game's history, financially it lifted the developer to new heights. Combined with other cash shop services,
Oh my
the level
God.
boost, and the war.
Wait, they started making more money from all the other shit instead of the subs? So they don't give a shit how many people are playing? What? These people are fucking geniuses. Are you kidding me? Guys, who's spending money in the WoW shop? How many of you are buying items in the WoW shop, bro? I never buy shit from the WoW shop, ever. Ever. I don't buy anything in the WoW shop. Oh, the WoW token. Oh my god.
Warlords of Draenor
Holy shit,
played a
Blizzard
large
is
role in
genius.
Activision Blizzard's best financial quarter to date.
Best
The
financial
influence of the
quarter
cash
at
shop
lowest
now
sub
fully
count?
realized, it would be taken a step further in March of 2015 with the addition of the WoW token,
WoW token's
where
been out for
players
10
could
years?
exchange real money for in-game gold, or on the other hand, use gold to purchase a token to pay for the subscription fee, or convert it into a balance only spendable
I've never
on
bought
Blizzard
gold ever in my
products.
life.
Regardless
Ever.
of the method, it would prove to be a massive commercial success for Activision Blizzard, earning them record profits during record low subscriptions. A long time had passed since the cash shop's initial rise in 2008. Those who warned of the dangerous path that World of Warcraft was set on saw their predictions unfold slowly over the course of several years. At this point in the game's history, it was possible to buy levels, it was possible to buy currency, and with this currency, you could buy items and even services from other players, such as raid or arena carries.
What?
And the list of things that you couldn't buy was now far shorter than the list of things that you could buy. It was at this point that the game was deemed by many to be pay to win, as real-life purchases now had a clear and heavy impact on the power levels between different players. Behavior that previously warranted suspensions was now officially endorsed and
Cabal
advertised,
emerges.
and any semblance of integrity the game had left was abandoned. Though at this point, subscriptions were no longer being reported, morale of the game's future continued to decline.
Legion. Rank 1 every season.
In
Legion.
August of the same year, at the Gamescom convention, the next expansion, Legion, would be announced. The long-lost Broken Isles were discovered, and the Orc Warlock Gul'dan unleashed a second burning crusade upon Azeroth. It would feature a new class, the Demon Hunter,
why do people
among
say
many
Legion was
supporting
good?
systems such as powerful and unique artifact weapons.
You guys are so fried. What was so good about Legion that was so different from WoD? Legion, from my perspective, was a fucking nightmare. You had to farm these weapons, and they forced you to do dailies infinitely. It was disgusting. It was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. You literally had to farm your weapon up, otherwise you literally couldn't play the game. And it was all dailies. It was all this useless shit you had to do. And PvPers were screwed. And then they like changed the gearing or something too, where like your gear didn't matter at all. It was like all eye level shit or something. So you had all these random ass pieces on, and it was like,
that players could obtain and
Oh,
level
God.
up
Oh,
as an additional
God, look at
form
this
of
crap.
character progression.
And
Each class
Jesus
would have a
Christ.
story-driven Order Hall campaign questline.
So
a new
bad.
legendary system would be
Oh,
added,
Jesus,
where for
this is
most
not good.
activities in the game, players had
Random
a small chance
drop.
to obtain powerful
Oh, God.
legendary items
Artifact.
to further enhance
And you just got fucking 0 artifact power from PvP, like 0. They didn't give you shit. It was actually the worst thing I've ever
their
seen.
characters. Daily quest hubs would be replaced with
Oh, God.
world
Jeez.
quests, offering a greater variety.
Look at these add-ons. Look at this add-on, Andy. Whatever even is going on. I don't know what's going on this screen.
And daily activities, which had become standard for several years, and the Mythic Plus system, an infinitely scalable.
Wait, was Mythic Plus introduced in Legion? Wait, what if Mythic killed the game? Is that where it all went wrong when they introduced Mythic Plus to the game? Oh my god, maybe Mythic Plus killed WoW. What did all these Mythic Plus players even do before there was Mythic Plus? What did you do? Because, like, if you raid, like, yeah, that's like once a week. So what are you doing the rest of the time? Yeah, Mythic Plus might have killed WoW, guys. Is that crazy to say that Mythic Plus destroyed the game because they made every single ability AoE and the game became very Zoomer-like and very Diablo-like? Is that what happened? Yeah, so it's all the PvEers' fault. That's fucking insane. No wonder everyone's glazing Legion. That's why. They brought out Mythic Plus. It's completely ridiculous. There's no way anyone would say this shit is fire. That's crazy.
Scaling timed challenge mode to bring dungeons back once more as a focus of endgame content. After the Warlords of Draenor, the confidence of the players was at an all-time low, and many would hope that Legion would be the expansion to redeem it. Although subscription numbers were no longer being reported, it had tied the release day sales records set by Cataclysm several years prior, selling a total of 3.3 million copies on release. Quarterly investor reports would also provide promising data on the overall reception of the Legion expansion, suggesting higher playtime per player. Mostly due to the success of its major features, the expansion as a whole proved to...
That's not true. They forced everyone to do all this bullshit to play the game. That's not why. That's not what happened. You had to sit there and grind out. It was like they started changing the way the game worked to force you to stay online longer.
To be a much-needed recovery. The order halls, being public locations that players shared, served as a base of operations and, unlike the previous garrison system, didn't harm its own social aspect. World quests, compared to the old daily hubs, offered much-needed variety in players' daily activities, and Mythic Plus saw high activity as players enjoyed the timed, ever-increasing challenge that they provided. Most of its features were received well, and with a solid rating scene to support it, it's generally looked back at favorably by even the most embittered fans, with its criticisms primarily being drawn from its reward structure. The most embittered fans, with its criticism.
So I've worked my ass off, grinding content non-stop, hoping to beat your ultra-random system for loot in every way, and the only thing I have to show for it are 4 legendaries that are not the good ones. Now I'm left with a choice of either re-rolling and paying you more money, or putting up with the fact that my character will be perpetually hamstrung compared to other luckier players. I'm so salty and I hate your system for loot. I feel like all you do is punish the people who can't full clear mythic raids or get lucky like some random scrub Lord McGee and are left to grind and hope. It was truly one of the most frustrating moments this morning that I've had in a long while.
Primarily being
got my 4th garbage legendary. RNG legendaries. The worst idea ever? Oh my god. RNG legendaries and people saying this shit is good. Disgusting. RNG loot was so terrible. Oh my god, so bad. So
structure. The legendaries, due to their low drop chance and high impact on gameplay, would be a source of frustration, so much so that they would receive a rehaul late into the expansion where players could purchase specific pieces with a new currency. And similarly, the forging system also contributed to this atmosphere of luck, by holding too much power in character progression. At this point, it was called Titan Forging, which had a much larger eye level range compared to the more tame Thunder Forging.
Please, please remove Titan Forging. Completely kills the point of difficulty progression if you can get same gear from lower difficulties. I forgot Titan Forging. Get some bullshit and someone would roll some Titan Forge and it was just like this god tier item and it just total RNG. And you just sit there and be like, oh my god, I just can't, what am I supposed to do?
First introduced in Pandora, items could roll up to 60 eye levels higher than that of their base, which made it possible to obtain mythic rating quality gear from even the most mundane activities. World of Warcraft and MMOs in general already have a high amount of luck tied to progression, but this added layer of needing the right piece to drop, and for that piece to Titan Forge, shifted the reward structure further from time investment.
What a great looking UI though. Fuck, that looks good.
To blind luck, and combined with the legendary system, many players would liken the expansion to a slot machine. Though overall, Legion would be received quite well.
They brought that back in DFA.
News from within. Senior Vice President of Story and Franchise Development, Chris Metzen, who had been with the company for 23 years at that point, had announced his retirement, citing burnout, panic attacks, and the desire to spend more time with his family as the primary reasons for the decision. What a casual. Having been one of the most public-facing figures and a primary visionary for the World of Warcraft and the characters who inhabited it, it was seen as a tremendous loss, with fans and co-workers alike commenting on his influence on the franchise. Along with this newfound growth of Legion, the private server community had also been thriving, and in 2016, it was larger than it had ever been at that point, with most congregating to a server named Nostalrius.
Good lord. So many goddamn people. This is literally, the server's been up for about 10 minutes and people are just entering, and this is the scene.
The server had been hosting over 130,000 active players worldwide, an impressive feat for a game that users had to seek out on their own. Their success proved to be their downfall, however, as in April of 2016, Blizzard had sent cease and desist letters for those responsible for running the server, threatening legal action if they refused to shut it down.
I personally had a private investigator hired to track me down by a legal firm that represents Blizzard. He called numerous people in my life, including my employer, my owner of my company, to confirm information about me so he could serve me papers at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday night, slamming and knocking on the door, freaking the crap out of my wife, and waking up my baby daughter in the next room.
They would comply shortly after, as tens of thousands of players logged in one last time to say farewell to the community that they had built. The shutdown, although completely within Blizzard's rights legally, naturally sparked outrage among the private server community.
Did any of you guys play Nostalrius? Most in that resub? Was Nostalrius the reason why Classic WoW exists to this day? Theoretically, all of my success to Nostalrius that I experienced for a couple months. Wow. That's completely insane. That's completely insane to think. Holy shit. So Nostalrius made everybody. All these classic WoW players. You should at least give them a sub. Fix your mic. What the fuck are you guys talking about? I'm gonna listen right now. If I don't hear any shit, the fuck are you guys talking about? I'm gonna listen right now. If I don't hear any, what does the mic sound like? Are you guys talking about? I'm gonna listen right now. If I don't hear any, what does the mic sound like? Are you guys talking about? I'm gonna listen right now. If I don't hear any, what does the mic sound like? It's not even that bad. I'm gonna listen right now. If I don't hear any, what does the mic sound like? It's not even that bad. You guys are tripping, bro. Lock in. It's not that bad. It's not cutting out. Yeah, guys, the quality's not great. My fucking cord is going limp. I'm about to run a 1 minute 30-second ad unless one person subs right now. What 154 subs a day. If one person subs, I'm not running any more ads and I'll fix the mic. One person subs. That's it. FC, think I get the sub, baby. Asthmatic in that prime sub, my friend. We'd love to see that. Thank you very, very much. That is absolutely spectacular, guys. Exile, 13-month resub. No, my mic is not cutting out, you clowns. Airman, for that gifted sub. Special bless the channel with 10 gifted, baby. Guys, give me some W's right now. Papiera for that 5-month resub. Yep, everybody getting subbed. Everybody getting subbed. Making to that sub. Jiggle to that gift. Guys, I ran an ad on those. You better believe that. You think I'm not going to run ad on some? Hell no, I'm going to run an ad every chance I get on these people. Hey, those massive gifted subs. We love that. Mitch, think of that resub. For now, get a new mic.
Fix mic PLS.
Muted? Muted? Yeah, you guys are full of shit. What do you mean you can't hear me? I know you can hear me. There's sound on. Everybody refresh right now. Lock it in. Lock it in right now.
Petition was created for an officially developed Blizzard Legacy server, and it would reach nearly 300,000 signatures in the span of 2 weeks. And although it didn't provide immediate results, much like the infamous "you think you do, but you don't" quote, it would prove to be a critical moment in Classic's history.
They're going to show the vanilla release, I swear. It's coming up soon. No, they're going to talk about BFA.
The next expansion would be revealed at BlizzCon 2017, and players learned of the battle for Azeroth. Having thwarted the Second Burning Crusade, the Horde and Alliance now turned their attention on each other and would stage an all-out war over a new resource called Azerite. This resource would serve as a way to empower a new amulet, the level of which would unlock traits in accompanying armor pieces. The system had been set up similarly to the previously successful artifact system, and advertised increased customization and player agency, allowing them to tailor their characters to suit their gameplay style.
You might find a power that makes you think twice about using a talent that you'd previously written off.
No, you
and
wouldn't.
You will certainly find combinations that reinforce your favorite way to play your character.
One of the main methods of obtaining this resource were through island expeditions, where a team of 3 players could fight against another team of players or AI for Azerite, found randomly throughout the island, with random enemy selection, placement, and quests serving as the primary means of attempting to add replayability and longevity to them.
It's something that we're calling dynamic replayability.
Dynamic replayability.
Every time you come to this space, the puzzle is different. The creatures are in different locations. There are additional gameplay elements scattered throughout the world, and it's always a little bit different.
Warfronts were a new feature, which were reminiscent of the original strategy games that the MMO was based off of. In here, you would battle for resources, and construct and upgrade buildings, and fend off troops with the ultimate goal of defeating the enemy commander. These wouldn't be the only announcements the World of Warcraft team had, though.
In the stream.
And I want to talk about...
Here we go, this guy.
Ice cream.
This was hit, this was sick. This was insane.
Ice cream is great.
Holy shit, this was
Ice cream
huge.
is one of my favorite desserts. Personally, I love chocolate, and I love cookies and cream. Cookies and cream is actually my all-time favorite dessert. But I understand that for some of you, your favorite flavor is vanilla.
Though for years they had claimed a re-release of previous versions of the game wasn't.
We gotta watch that. This was so insane when this happened.
Please welcome executive producer of World of Warcraft, J. Allen Brack.
go up here.
Now, desserts.
This was so insane
But
when this happened.
understand that for some of you,
oh my god,
your favorite flavor is vanilla.
This was so ridiculous.
Someone once said that you can't go home again, but they lacked vision. And a temporal discombobulator.
Bro, this was such an insane cinematic. Oh my god, are you kidding me? Bro, this was so ridiculous. Oh
Fans
my god.
of World of Warcraft around the world, we hear you. I am pleased and also a little bit nervous to announce the development of a classic server option for World of Warcraft. This is a larger endeavor than you might imagine, but we are committed to making an authentic Blizzard quality classic experience.
So insane.
We want to reproduce the game experience that we all enjoyed from the original classic WoW, not the actual launch experience. So please bear with us. It's going to take some time, but it will happen. Now,
so crazy, man. Oh, wow. This was my second favorite moment right here. Watch this.
Fluffy face of Diablo.
2018 BlizzCon. Flew out there, playing with the team, the X team, right? The move. We're the Gosu crew. Made a huge run through the lower bracket. Europeans fought the Asian teams, winning all the way up through the finals, making it there. Ended up making it all the way to the finals, where we basically won this tournament. We basically won BlizzCon 2018. That was a big year.
Curious.
Fluffy.
I was curious. I see a lot of mechanics that we've kind of been begging for in Diablo 3 in this. Is there any plans to make this playable on PC, or is this strictly mobile forever?
Are there any? Yeah, the current plan is to be on mobile, both Android and iOS. We don't have any plans at the moment to do PC. Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
You can play on your tablet too.
Yes, it's also on the Switch. You're right. Hello.
This guy's like, is this a joke? I think that's what that guy says after that. Is this some kind of joke? God, that was so great. I was somewhere in that crowd listening to that shit. That was legendary. Legendary.
Impossible. World of Warcraft Classic would be unveiled,
Phone games are
combining
so
the updated Legion client with old data discovered on a backup of a backup held onto by an ex-employee. A small team dedicated their efforts in providing a home for the ever-growing population of vanilla fans in place of the one that they had not so long ago taken away. Details of development would follow shortly after.
I always
with the
wanted one of those
philosophy of
Blizzard shirts,
changing
man.
as
Those are
little
hard.
of the game as possible in an effort to most accurately recreate the experience as it was from 2004 to 2007, including a phasing schedule to match roughly the original release schedule, and as requested by the player base, the absence of many features such as the dungeon finder, looking for raid mode, and the endgame cash shop, to name just a few. Combined with Legion's recent success, the outlook of the game was looking more promising than ever before. The Battle for Azeroth soon saw its release in August of 2018, selling 3.4 million copies on its first day, breaking the record initially set by Cataclysm in 2010. However, when the honeymoon phase ended, the faults of the expansion started to become clear. The Azerite armor system, which was said to hold major traits that altered how classes played, instead were a series of incidental procs that rarely did anything other than increase damage done, healing throughput, and damage mitigation, with some being just base stat increases.
You might find a power that makes you think twice about using a talent that you'd previously written off, and you will certainly...
This was the worst grind ever. Farming your Azerite heart, that was the worst shit. That was terrible too.
We find combinations.
Legion to
that
BFA,
reinforce
terrible
your
grind.
favorite way
So
to
bad
play
they had to
your
backtrack
character.
it all completely.
Not at all as gameplay altering as advertised. And despite BFA being centered around a faction war, Warfronts were exclusively a PvE game mode that were also nearly impossible to lose, with the only recorded losses resulting from the entire team waiting within the base until they were overwhelmed.
Wow. I'm screenshotting this.
Due to this extreme lack of challenge, they were seen to be more of a chore than anything else. And as for island expeditions, players saw little replayability in the randomized selection of enemies, and behind the bells and whistles was a simple and repetitive truth. Rush to get the required amount of Azerite before the enemy team does, and as a result, the game mode would become very repetitive very quickly. The story would also come under heavy criticism. The whole expansion would have a heavy focus on Sylvanas Windrunner, the leader of the Forsaken of the Horde, and throughout BFA's 2-year run, she would face many major lore characters, and even entire armies, outwitting them at every turn or dispatching them with ease in combat. The decisions she made often came with no reasonable explanation or logic, leaving the player base in the dark for the entirety of the expansion, and many would liken her to a Mary Sue, a fiction archetype who is inexplicably free of any and all weakness. Such traits are also common through self-inserts, which there was also evidence of, as a writer for Blizzard would roleplay as a major character, Nathanos Blightcaller, on Twitter. The narrative structure remained ambiguous throughout the entirety of the expansion, with most criticism being made towards the ending. As was custom with the final boss of an expansion since the Wrath of the Lich King, players were treated with a finale cutscene. They would typically run a few minutes and were fully voice-acted animation presentations.
Is it over? At long last. No king rules forever, my son.
Though for the Battle for Azeroth, the old god N'Zoth would be the finale, with years of anticipation building up as his existence was referenced several times up to the final patch of the expansion, and where players expected a similar voice-acted dialogue between the major lore characters and their thoughts on defeating a god, they were instead met with the same footage I just droned over in a monotone manner. The feedback was immediate and clear, and shortly after its premiere, the video would be unlisted as Blizzard tried to hide the blundered finish to a blunder of an expansion.
1.6k likes, 16k dislikes. Didn't they start? When did YouTube start hiding dislikes on shit? Isn't that fried? You can't even see if like what. YouTube too. They nerfed everything. Everything's been nerfed, bro. Like.
Come on, guys. Let's go play video games. Hooray!
The initial wave of excitement quickly soured as all 3 major systems of the expansion fell short of their goals. They would later be addressed in major patches, though players would have to wait nearly a year following their initial release. In response, monthly active users would start taking a dive, and in an attempt to bolster engagement metrics, the expansion would aim to rely on what many described to be an excessive amount of activities designed around daily and weekly timers. By the end of the expansion's lifespan, this would be the full list.
7 world quests, emissary, Mechagon quests, Najatar quests, minor assault quests, major assault quests, mini table. Oh, the visions! Oh my god, the visions were so bad. I forgot about that shit. Warfront quests. Holy shit. Bro, there was so much shit to do that you had to do. It was disgusting. It was completely disgusting. Visions are the worst thing ever. So is Torghast. Get a Torgasm. Full-time job. This was horrible. I didn't do none of this shit. I did none of it. I literally skipped all the dailies. I was weak the whole expansion. I didn't even get flying in BFA. And I played every day. Didn't even get it. 6th in that resub. Kicked in that sub. Yeah, they're bringing this shit back. This is bad. Like this was when WoW felt super like a job. But maybe there has to be some aspect of this to keep people playing. I don't know.
Many would comment that the entire game at this point had devolved into a list of chores that she had a limited amount of time to complete, aimed to keep players in a gerbil-like routine of going down a checklist for their daily session. Instead of feeling rewarded for their playtime and dedication, many would feel punished for missing sessions and question their reasons for playing to begin with. And just 2 months after release, Blizzard would suffer another devastating departure, as co-founder Mike Morhaime announced that he was stepping down as company president, promoting then executive producer J. Allen Brack to take his place. More troubling still, these people weren't quitting game development, they were quitting Blizzard. Later, in 2020, Morhaime would announce a new company, Dreamhaven, and under its umbrella were 2 studios, Moonshot Games and Secret Door, of which many former members of Blizzard would be employed. In its announcement, they would stress that the goal of the company would be to prioritize product quality and player experience over short-term financial pressures, a development mindset that many fans say Activision Blizzard had abandoned long ago. Chris Metzen would later found Warchief Gaming, which is dedicated to developing worlds and tabletop experiences. And outside of World of Warcraft, the former Hearthstone director Ben Brode would launch the game studio Second Dinner. Ex-StarCraft 2 developers would join Frost Giant and work towards developing a new RTS, and Lightforge game was opened by former Blizzard engineer Matt Shimbari and would later partner with Dreamhaven. Morhaime would be just one of many longtime talent leaving the company in recent years, and his departure would be instrumental in what would later be known as brain drain afflicting the developer, slowly but surely.
Dude, these are all like fucking huge heavy hitter people doing things. Did any of these people become successful doing anything else? It's also kind of weird, like, I don't know exactly how game development works, but a lot of these people are old. Or older. And we're expecting these people to, like, be in the now and understand what's going on with gaming. Like, should developers be older people? Is that just how it goes? I don't know. Is it possible that someone could be in like their 20s and put out some heat and just change the gaming space forever? I'm not old.
The people who made Blizzard what they were departing. This rash of departures would be downplayed as ordinary for the world of game development, in that the games were more about the team rather than individual members. But internally, employees shared a different story. Rather that these people were irreplaceable mentors, and that they drew inspiration from each other, and that each departure would be accompanied by a negative, cascading effect to those left behind. And just months later, another co-founder, Frank Pierce, would be the next to announce his departure, leaving just Alan Adam as the last co-founder standing. Development with Classic was progressing steadily, and a release date for the summer of 2019 was announced. A new game within the Warcraft franchise was also revealed. Warcraft 3 Reforged would advertise fully remodeled characters and animations, as well as retuned maps and campaigns in this modern-day remaster, with a set release year of 2019. This would later be delayed to January 2020 in an official post, citing delays in development and the desire to retain a high-quality standard that the player base held them to. though not pertaining to the world of Warcraft directly, but would transpire with the development of Warcraft 3 and other titles, revealed the priorities and development practices of Blizzard as a whole, and set the standard of how they would treat their community across all franchises, World of Warcraft included. This was also the BlizzCon where they announced a mobile Diablo game, which was met with, a less than desirable reception.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
Yo, what happened with Diablo Immortal? How did they miss the mark so bad on that? Like, did that turn into anything? Did any of you play that shit or see it or look at it? It was so bad. It was super pay to win. Quinn spent $25,000 on it to prove a point. Cash grab for microtransactions.
That's a story for another time. To make matters worse, the following years, although financially successful, would prove to be the most damaging to their reputation. Though reaching historic revenue earnings, treatment of their employees would become the focus of negative press. In February of 2019, 800 employees would be fired, many without warning, and were left crying in the parking lot. This is a trend that would continue through the following years of record-breaking profits, with massive layoffs and multi-million-dollar CEO bonuses following shortly after. In one instance, employees would be given gift cards to the games that they just got fired from working on their way out. Hey, here's some Overwatch skins.
Oh, man.
You're fired, by the way. And in other cases, the amount of people fired would be underreported. Combined with the poor reception of the Battle for Azeroth, the reputation had quickly started to sour from that of a community-first industry innovator to one operated on greed, predatory business practices, and the cold treatment of their employees and even their player base. Little did everyone know, though, the worst was yet to come. Since 2008, they had hosted an esports event called the Arena World Championship, or AWC, where high-end competitive players would face off in a tournament-style competition of the game's arena mode for cash prizes, ranging from $120,000 since its inception in 2008 to $280,000 in 2018. For 2019, however, they had announced a special campaign where players would be able to contribute to the ever-growing prize pool. 2 new toys, the Transmorpher Beacon and some faction-themed fireworks, were made to be available in the in-game cash shop, and to encourage sales, 25% of the proceeds would contribute towards the prize pool of both the Arena World Championship and also the Mythic Dungeon International, stating that the support of the players would help take the WoW esports scene to the next level. They also assured that a minimum prize pool of $500,000 would be offered, split up evenly between the 2 events. Considering that all announcements used verbiage such as help or contribute, the player base had assumed that this $500,000 prize pool would be funded by Blizzard, as they had done for a decade prior, and that the proceeds of the toy sales would, well, contribute to the total, as stated. After the campaign had concluded, though, fans were dismayed to learn that they didn't help nor contribute, as Blizzard pocketed what they would usually put up and put the responsibility on funding the entirety of the prize pool on the player base, as confirmed by an AWC participant, Snuts.
So let's rephrase this. So people gave Blizzard so much money, Blizzard decided to give themselves even more.
Right. So they collected around $2.6 million, give or take. And instead of adding prize money for themselves, they just pocketed $2 million and decided to just use the money that the community gave us and pay for their tournament.
Both competitors and viewers expressed their anger, stating that they had felt deceived and that the good nature of those wishing to support the esports community of Blizzard were taken.
This was tough. Yeah, so guys, I always thought like WoW is an esport. I really believe that it could have been one of the biggest and best esports ever, but Blizzard just never paid attention to WoW for some reason. They like put a lot of effort into their other games, like Hearthstone, Here's the Storm, all of this other shit. When WoW has this most dedicated fan base ever, and it is the greatest game ever. Yeah, Overwatch, huge fucking beatings in Overwatch, right? Like they just never picked WoW. I don't know why they didn't, but if they could have picked WoW, it would have just been like, who knows if they actually put a bunch of cash into it and did it. It could have been massive. It could have been absolutely massive, I think. But they just never invested in that side of the game ever.
An advantage of. Blizzard would never acknowledge the controversy and the...
Yeah, this was hella weird though. Like I think you can still buy these toys, but yeah, realistically, there should have been a year where the prize pool was over $1 million for each, it being like $200,000. So this is like one time they tried this, and then a lot of people were like, what the fuck? Like, even I bought the toys, but like, yeah, a bunch of people bought this shit, and they literally raised millions of dollars. It was like, dude, millions of dollars were raised from so many people who just love to watch Arena. Like, the toy was cool itself too, but like, people were actually like, yeah, dude, let's see what's possible. Let's see.
Prize pools were funded solely by...
If you have ever played WoW PvP and have ever seen a BlizzCon or what it is or experienced it, it's just a completely different feeling.
The crowdfunding campaign, and despite the self-proclaimed success in raising the funds, crowdfunding such as this would not be repeated for future tournaments, presumably due to the intense backlash that they received. World of Warcraft was
the
only
dude who
franchise
protested
that would
on
be
the
at the center
stream
of controversy.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Would
I
attract
feel like
the attention of national media.
Here's a story which just won't go away. Activision Blizzard. It has suspended a gamer and taken his prize money away because he made comments supporting Hong Kong protesters.
Did they give him his money back? I
In
think
Hong
they
Kong
did.
were at their climax at this point. Having been a British colony until 1997, when sovereignty of the territory was returned to China, Hong Kong would retain a separate legal and economic system with basic human rights safeguarded, in contrast to other cities in China, which are heavily governed by the authoritarian central government. Though in March of 2019, a bill would be proposed that would allow extraditions of fugitives to mainland China, which infringed on these rare freedoms, and, due to China's opaque legal system, would allow the prosecution of citizens for political purposes. Citizens held marches in protest, which quickly turned violent after they were fired upon with tear gas, rubber bullets, pepper spray, and even live rounds as the situation spiraled out of control. In October of the same year, a tournament competitor, Jung Nai-wan, or Blitzchung, after a victory took out a face mask similar to those being worn by the Hong Kong protesters and voiced his support to them, quoted, "Liberate Hong Kong, the revolution of our times."
They're all hiding their faces, dude. That was crazy. I forgot about
Blizzard
that.
announced that Blitzchung had been banned from competing further in the tournament, in addition to revoking the prize money that he had won up until that point, totaling $10,000. Additionally, he would be banned from competing for a full year, and the two casters interviewing Blitzchung at the time would also be fired. As a result, Activision Blizzard would swiftly come under heavy criticism.
Is this
as
just
many
talking about
cyber
what has
advocates
happened to
aside
Blizzard?
for vested financial
Holy shit, bro. I forgot how much was going on and just all the tides that shifted. Oh my god. Have things gotten better at Blizzard or no? Are things back on the up? I feel like things had to have gotten better. I feel like you don't hear about any of this more crazy stuff now. Flag emote. If it hasn't got to the worst part, yeah, no, I feel like I know what's coming here. Yeah, I feel like I do know what's on the horizon. Say what I do know, though. What 190 subs a day? 19,000% completion. Oh man. Close some tabs. Close a couple tabs. Close a couple tabs here. Close a couple tabs. Close a couple tabs here. I'll probably close a couple tabs. Okay. Far side of that sub. Breast milk arc next. Dude, chest up. How many total subs do you have? It could be one more if you sub. What is this?
Brother, like, if there's one...
Don't brother me. And dude, don't ever, yo bro, like, ooh, no, dude, there's a thing. We don't, no offense, we don't talk about Palestine or we don't talk about those type of thing in here. Sounds good? Alright.
What did you say?
No, there's a guy who says free Palestine or stuff like that. I don't want to be rude, bro. In here we don't talk. Do I look like Hassan? Do I look like Hassan? Yeah, do I look like a... No, I don't. Do I look like Asmund Gold? I hope not. Alright? Okay, so please, we don't talk about this. Sounds good? Alright. No, but dude, like, for real, please. Alright? No,
Isn't
like...
it a good compromise for 1 dust, though, per duel? Like, is it really that big of a deal? It's 1 dust per duel. Is it really that big of a deal?
Because right now, well, it's whatever, dude. If you guys want, but remove the world buff, dude. That's for sure, because that's retarded, bro. Like, remove the world.
I don't think world buffs are getting removed, bro.
Yo, is this his character? Is Mitch still doing a tournament? Do we know? Is Mitch still holding a mock Gora thing? Is that do we know what's going on with that or what's happening? Mitch screwed it up. Mitch will ditch. Did he ditch? Did he say something? Has he mentioned anything? I have not heard from Mitch. I'm not sure what he's up to or what's going on. Dude. His roommate's running the whole thing. He keeps delaying it. Elden Ring arc. They're doing a mukbang tournament now. I didn't know Mitch was a streamer still. Jesus. Should we keep watching this?
Interests.
The Pandora's
another
box.
team, American University, would add their voices to the protest, which was also quickly censored and condemned by Blizzard.
Spirit. And that is game WPI with the win. The winners
Similar to Blitzchung, they would also be banned from competing in future tournaments. This time for 6 months.
Shit, bro.
Shortly after, then President J. Allen Brack released a statement saying that the penalties were not appropriate and that Blitzchung's winnings would be reinstated to him and that his ban would be reduced to 6 months, down from 12, and also state that their business dealings with China had no influence on the initial penalties. Brack would open up the following BlizzCon with an apology to the mishandling of the situation, stating that their actions would speak louder than words.
But our actions are going to matter more than any of these words.
A phrase that the Blizzard community would quickly become very familiar with. In the same BlizzCon, the new expansion for World of Warcraft would also be revealed. Players would enter the Shadowlands and join factions called Covenants. Similar to the Order Halls of Legion, these would serve as a base of operations for players to conduct their campaign and also gain unique abilities and perks. They would also explore the Tower of Torghast, a randomized 1 to 3 player dungeon crawl with powerful affixes to power up their characters, and upon completion, gain the ability to craft legendary armor pieces, similar in function to those of the Legion expansion, though following the poor reception of the Battle for Azeroth, many more would look at the reveal through a more critical lens. Though their current projects were met with mixed reactions, World of Warcraft Classic had seen its release in August of 2019 to surprising success. Initially holding only a handful of servers, it was quickly overwhelmed, and new servers were created to hold the surprising amount of people that had longed for the Azeroth of years long.
Holy fuck. Do you guys remember when Classic was like brand new and you would be sitting in actual 20,000 person queues? Bro, that was the biggest fucking joke I've ever imagined. I could not believe that. You actually had to log in like the night before. You try to log in at like 8 a.m. and maybe by the time you get home from work, you're like a couple thousand in queue. Oh my god, that's when they should have been fucking DDoSing the servers. Kick everybody off the server and then reset it. Get a chance to log in. Like, that was horrendous. Dude, this was the worst thing as a streamer too. Oh my god, you would actually be... I had days I would just sit in queue, like 8,000 in queue. I'd just be sitting there like, yeah, we're just fucking
created to hold the surprising amount of people that had longed for the Azeroth of years long past.
In the queue,
upon launch, interest was so underestimated that queue times would balloon up to several hours, and even months following the release for some of the highest population servers. Some aspects of the game would age well, such as a renewed sense of community and a heavy focus on traditional RPG elements, and other aspects such as assault and archaic raiding scene, and an eventual stagnation of content would remain to be problem areas within the game, as well as botting. As the game grew in popularity, so too did third-party websites offering in-game items or services in exchange for real money, a practice that's against the game's terms of service. These sites oftentimes use automated programs to obtain this currency, and Blizzard would be ineffective in controlling them throughout the duration of Classic, even though they were relatively easy to spot by the players, as displayed many times by content creators within the community.
I found a warrior mob grinding in Tanaris having a bit of trouble getting to his target.
Cheating had always been, and continues to be, an area where Blizzard would perform poorly, even in the current version of the game, but due to the more fragile nature of the economy in World of Warcraft Classic and its community, it would have greater negative consequences. Though cheating was to remain a problem area, due to its traditional design and the absence of what many now...
What the fuck are you talking about? 10-minute timeout.
Deemed to be an overly intrusive cash shop, it proved to hold the attention of a wide player base consistently through its year-and-a-half run, though not every re-release was to be met with the same success.
He's going on a rant right now. Were people actually upset about Warcraft 3? What even is this shit? Did this ever come out?
I used to get in the K before I got home from work.
Oh, nice, who's man?
Warcraft 3 Reforged saw its release in the following January. Though delayed, as they ensured to maintain a high-quality standard, it was universally met with negative reviews, as players saw little polish with the remaster, citing a poor UI, copious bugs, a low frame rate, missing features from the original, and consistent crashes. The latter of these issues would take the spotlight in the competitive scene shortly after. In their very first major tournament, in a quarterfinal match between two top players, Moon and Thorzane, a crash occurred at a key moment. The score was 1-1, and Thorzane seemed to be on track to take the win, but suffered a disconnect mid-match.
Thorzane smells blood in the water. He's going in for the kill here. We have Banish ready. Mountain King was a little hurt. This is all buying time for the towers. We have no Breath of Fire, by the way. It is Drunken Haze, so big mischance on these Dragonhawks, and a disconnect. That fight was the most important one in this game yet.
The match would then be restarted, despite Thorzane's advantage, and he would once again retake control of the rematch, and once again suffered a disconnect.
I think he already has enough mana. I don't need a Blood Mage. I don't need you. You're benched. Once this... And looks like another drop just happens. Oh wow. As Thorzane, I kind of like his position here in this game. Again, yeah. This is so frustrating.
The match would be replayed for a third time, and Moon, having adapted to Thorzane's strategy at this point, was the one to take the lead and eliminated Thorzane, resulting in the forfeiture of the large prize pool he surely would have won twice. Though they are the most impactful, as they happened during a quarterfinal match, this would not be the only disconnects to occur in the tournament, as competitors in lower level brackets would also become victim to random drops at key moments. Years later, an internal investigation would reveal that they knowingly released the game in an unfinished state, unwilling to delay it for a second time in fear of losing the pre-orders they had already amassed. It was also noted that the entire project was hamstrung by a low budget, due due to its low potential for being a big earner for the company. Internal sources would also share their struggles with exhaustion, anxiety, and depression for more than a year, and that their warnings of the game's unfinished state being largely ignored in order to make the tight release schedule. Negative reviews continued at a steady pace, as did refunds, as players were less than impressed at the level of polish that they received compared to what was promised. The classic game teams would be shut down, a new team now in their place, and in a bit of irony in a Bloomberg interview, a Blizzard spokesperson repeated the same failed promise made by Brack a few months prior, that their work and actions would speak louder than words. A delay was also announced with Shadowlands, this time from October to December.
Oh, I
more citing
forgot.
that
They
extra
kept
polish is
delaying the
needed before
expansion,
release
right?
would be made, and despite the struggles with the Battle for Azeroth, Blizzard proved, as they have many times, that selling copies wasn't the problem, as Shadowlands sold an impressive 3.7 million copies on launch day alone. Much like its predecessor though, not long after the initial launch, the expansion's major features would be the focus of criticism. The Tower of Torghast, or Chorghast as players soon likened it to, suffered the same fate as island expeditions from the Battle for Azeroth, and quickly became repetitive, as with most systems that reset on a weekly timer. As for the expansion's high-level zone, the Maw, due to the player's inability to mount, it was seen to be unnecessarily frustrating to navigate and formulate to other such zones released in the past. By now, players were noticing a pattern of high-level zones with new reputations and excessive daily timers such as quests, rare elite enemies, and treasure chests. As for Covenants, they received a mixed reaction, with some praising the unique abilities and aesthetics obtained from choosing a specific faction, and others condemning them for being unbalanced, thus burdening them with regret if they had made a poor choice.
Some people's classes, 40% of their damage is just their Covenant ability. They're all over the place.
Oh my god, the Covenants were so fried. You like couldn't change your fucking Covenant. Holy shit, this is where people had to make like 5 characters because you couldn't have the right Covenant. And then, if you switched your spec, you couldn't change your Covenant. Oh my god, I totally forgot. They had these they had some terrible features in the game.
Some would also take issue with being locked down with a large amount of content offered from the other Covenants, as choosing one meant excluding 3 others, though a time-gated quest was available should they feel the need to switch. For better or for worse, Blizzard would stand their ground at launch, but also stated that they had the ability to pull the ripcord to give players more freedom with Covenants should the systems be received poorly. This comment would start a movement called Pull the Ripcord, which they would comply to nearly a year later in patch 9.1.5. As for the story, many would see it as even worse than that of the Battle for Azeroth expansion. The plot somehow became even more confusing and contradictory, requiring external literature to follow along, as even YouTube channels dedicated to the lore of the game had difficulty piecing together the disorienting storylines. They would not be shy in expressing their frustration.
How many books are you gonna fucking get out of me? How much money am I gonna pay before I can finally explain the lore to the people that want to know about it to the degree that it's actually comprehensible?
He's got the Zuck match going on.
Never serve.
Major cutscenes would continue to be unlisted on their YouTube channel in response to the negative reception. Only time will tell of the fate of the Shadowlands, if it'll go down as a good or a bad expansion, but players are quick to note the similarities between it and the Battle for Azeroth, where the major systems are released in a poorly implemented state, only to be addressed in patches several months later, and many at this point would take notice to a rising contender within the MMO genre.
Oh no.
Over the years, Final Fantasy XIV would slowly but surely gain a sizable subscriber base.
This was a really weird phase. The fact that Final Fantasy, bro, what was going on in the phase? I mean, what a weird time. I forgot. Do you guys remember that shit? It was like this cult that came out of nowhere, and it was like, wow, it's the worst game ever. Everybody's playing Final Fantasy XIV. It was the most delusional shit I've ever seen. That was a terrible time to be a WoW player. My mic, 1 minute 30 second ad. These fucking idiots, bro. That Final Fantasy XIV apocalypse was ridiculous. That was a psychotic time to be a WoW streamer. I forgot about that completely. The FF14 apocalypse was crazy. Oh my god. It was like every other comment is, why are you playing Final Fantasy? Why are you playing this? And I'd watch it, and it was just, oh my god. I don't even know what they're doing. What are they even doing in Final Fantasy right now? Final Fantasy. How do you even spell 14? XIV? Fucking garbage ass thing. Try to even see it. Let's just see. Yeah, bro. I don't even know what people are doing on Final Fantasy. God. It's crazy. Digital, did that sub? Mystic, did that resub? Gooning. That's a gooner game for sure. Judista, did that resub? Bro, it's crazy going down memory lane like this and kind of seeing all this shit, right? Like, that's a trip to think about, that this all this shit happened. Do you guys remember any of this stuff happening? Nikolai from that Prime sub.
Make WoW great again.
Was Shadowlands during COVID? Or no? When was that? Hey, I forgot about that. Like, COVID happened, and then like the zones were like no one was going outside, and Blinky through that resub. There was a lot of weird shit going on. The streaming space was crazy back then during COVID. That's why I really had like a evolution through COVID. That's some of my biggest times during COVID too, and then now we've somehow managed to surpass that years later. But shut up and press play already. Just waiting on an ad run here. All right. Blinky, thank you for that resub. Appreciate all these subs and resubs, guys. We're actually at 200 subs of the day, guys. We're hitting a bit of a reactionary period. Or we could log on SOD. We can watch a bit more of this video, or we can log on SOD. And we can go do an AQ40, and then we can do an AQ20, and then we can go do a ZG, and then we can go to a BWL, and then we can go into MC, and then we can do a NAX 10, NAX 20, NAX 30, then NAX 40. And we can do hard mode 0, 1, 2, or 3. Or I can do invasion farming on SOD. Or we could go run a Karazhan Crypts. Or I can make an alt on SOD. And quest. No boosting. Or should we watch this video still? Zavar, I think that's up. Jaquel, I think that resub.
Following a failed initial launch.
Or we just log on hardcore.
After listening to player feedback, the MMO was remade in many ways and relaunched in 2013. It would see steady growth due to these improvements and also the shortcomings of the World of Warcraft.
How Final Fantasy XIV clawed its way back from disaster to become 2020's best MMO.
Do what would be the most fun for you?
Bro, this was like some maxed brainwashing. I don't know who led the movement. Was this Asmon? Did Asmongold single-handedly make this shit happen? This is the shit I'm talking about, guys. If all of these people sat here and said retail WoW was the best game ever, people would realize it. It would change. Nobody is playing Final Fantasy XIV anymore. Everyone was saying this shit it's like no. But literally, he started that. It was everywhere. Everyone was playing Final Fantasy XIV. It's crazy.
And as players became increasingly embittered with Shadowlands, they started migrating over, including major streamers and YouTube channels, creating more tension within the already
Bro, this is when it became even more popular to just shit on WoW constantly. Like
tribalistic MMO community, as players, content creators, and even employees would take shots at each other over social media.
Do you guys remember that? Like, dude, there was a huge shift in WoW content where it was like, instead of like making anything good about the game, it was just straight shit talking the game. Even if the game wasn't the best at the time, it was like, dude, every single content creator just put out negative shit about it all the time. It's all you could hear about anywhere.
Though subscriptions remain to be hidden, third-party analytics began favoring Final Fantasy XIV to be the most active MMO, with Blizzard even sending out surveys attempting to gauge interest in it for the first time.
Do you guys watch Bellular? Maybe he's got some good content. I watched a Bellular video of him trying to explain what he thought was going on in PvP.
And in many years, it was
I
becoming
don't
clear
think he's
to
ever
many
played.
that the world of Warcraft was losing its hold on the genre.
It's treason, then.
At BlizzCon 2020, the next step for Classic was announced, and as many expected, players would begin their second journey into the Outland in the Burning Crusade Classic. Much like the base game, the first expansion would be recreated closely to its original run in 2007, but with one exception, the addition of a major cash shop element, the character boost.
We are going to offer a level 58 boost for purchase, but it does come with some restrictions. So it's going to be one per account. It's not going to be usable on Blood Elf or Draenei. It'll have some dungeon.
For many players, the feeling of anticipation was quickly replaced
TBC equals the Bobby Charity, the Boosting Crusade.
by that of betrayal, as character boosts, among other paid services,
Best in Slot Rogue, my leather wallet.
such as the WoW
Holy
token,
fuck.
were specifically stated not to be released in the classic version of the game, as they didn't exist back then. Ultimately, the character boost would be a one-use service, bringing any character to level 58, and was offered in a bundled package that also included other digital rewards.
Oh my god. This is when it was like peak classic degenerate community. People would literally sit here and say horrible shit to you in game if you were running boosted gear or you had this mount on. It was like people were so toxic. Like, dude, the toxicity went insane when this shit happened. This is when they banned /spit. Yeah, bro, this was getting outraged. This was crazy.
Including a mount, a pet, and a toy. Ignoring the fact that they had lied, Blizzard would pitch
And then the mount in the store, bro, that was always so problematic. I've never been one who cares a lot about mounts in stores. Because the mounts I get, they're not in stores. Mounts in stores. You know, I have to actually fight it out in the arena, 3v3. Right, climb the ranks, be one of the top-rated players, one of the best win rates, winning consistently, this and that. So I'm not worried about the store mounts. Let the people have the store mounts.
and it was intended for new players.
These fuckers. Someone tell me right now that this mic cutting out bullshit. Are these guys just rage baiting me right now? Bullshit. Are these guys just rage baiting me right now? I'm listening right now. Just rage baiting me right now. I'm listening right now. I can't hear a single word that's being cut out. I can't hear a single word that's being cut out. You fucking idiots. I swear you guys are morons. I've looked twice. It's never cut out, ever. It has not cut out a single time.
Who didn't have the time to level.
There's a lot of my friends, for example.
We have barely 6,000 viewers, guys. Please subscribe right now. Otherwise, I cannot buy a new microphone. How about this? We'll set up a sub goal. If we can get 500 subs today, we're at 200. I will buy a new microphone tonight. Microwave, did that resub? FC, did that get the sub? Guys, read sign language. 500 subs, I'll buy a mic.
People who maybe didn't really play
fuck is
Classic
going
when
on?
it first came out, right? And so now they're behind. And they're interested in playing the Burning Crusade.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that those people are served
A and B to the 5. Get the man splat with that sub, product that sub, man.
too. And one of the ways we could do that is provide a boost to people who are interested.
I bought
in
a
coming
boost.
back.
I forgot.
This was contradicted in the fact that the service was purchasable by everyone,
Casting that
even
bribe?
by those who already had high-level characters. In addition to the boost, Blizzard had also announced Classic-era servers for those who preferred the vanilla state of the game, but this too would be met with controversy, as there would be a $35 charge in
what the
transferring
fuck happened
characters
here?
to both states of the games, as
Was this the beginning of like the 6 versions, 7 versions of WoW? Oh my god, bro.
characters that
What
players
has been
spent the
happening the
past
last
year and
few
a
years?
half
Quit
leveling
leaking
and
fake
gearing
clips.
would be dangled in front of their
W for that,
faces
son.
in the login screen behind the paywall. The outrage was immediate, and Blizzard would respond by lowering the charge to $15, down from $35. As for the boost, the community was quick to point out the dangers of releasing such a service, such as the abandonment of the old world, and how bots, which had already been a major problem in Classic, would become empowered with the ability to skip towards the end game, making them capable of farming higher level materials almost immediately, thus having a greater negative
Communal
effect
gear.
than they previously had. Many also warned that accepting a service as major as this would lead Classic down the same familiar road, and that it would suffer the same fate of the game that spawned its existence to begin with, in addition to creating an unfair, paid element that let players pay to skip what other players had already worked for. Though these worries would ultimately be ignored, and the level boost was released despite the backlash. Footage of boosted characters botting started to appear immediately.
Literally every single bot without fail was a level 58 boosted character. The limitation of 1 per account for bots is completely irrelevant. As expected for them, it's just a huge time save from actually having to level.
And many saw an old world now abandoned, as the boost now loaded the majority of the player base directly into the Outland. One of the core design philosophies of Classic had been betrayed. A large portion of the player base at this point were refugees from current World of Warcraft, due to in large part of the overzealous cash shop, which was promised to be absent in the recreation. Shortly after, a WoW token with a green Burning Crusade background was data mined, and players took to the forums, creating numerous threads asking for confirmation whether this was planned to be released in Classic, and once more...
Bro, the WoW token in TBC... I was memeing that shit so hard. Like, bro, that happened, right? Wasn't that a thing? They had a token in TBC that existed. Couldn't you like not play the game without buying gold because you couldn't participate in any GDKP ever in your life? Or was it in Wrath? Not.
Or were simply ignored. Still to this day, several months later, there's no confirmation, yes or no, of their plans to implement it into the game. This betrayal proved to be the final straw for many of the player base, including the highly intelligent, not monotone, and physically attractive YouTube user MadSeasonShow, whom after 16 years playing and 7 years on YouTube, had announced his retirement. The heart and soul now ripped away once more, Classic's population began to wane drastically, and the remaining players would comment on the second foray into the Outland becoming more and more empty with each passing day. Some of those who remained chose to rebel by targeting other players who had purchased the level boost bundle by performing an in-game emote /spit on anyone seen riding the deluxe edition mount. In response, Blizzard disabled the emote when targeting another player.
Alright, let's see if we can spit on someone. Wow.
Forum threads expressing concern with Classic's future were ultimately ignored, but to a community that acted against their interests, Blizzard's response would be immediate and clear. It was revealed later that Omar Gonzalez, who was one of the few responsible for taking action and making the Classic recreation a reality, had silently taken leave from Blizzard to join Secret Door under Dreamhaven, contributing to the ever-growing list of people who didn't quit developing games, but rather quit developing games for Blizzard Entertainment. Not long after, Jeff Kaplan, a 20-year veteran of Blizzard and director of Overwatch, announced his departure. This news would come as a surprise to the community, as the sequel to Overwatch, Overwatch 2, was still in development. Kaplan himself had gained the reputation as a leader and wholly passionate about his...
Overwatch 2, like, God, what the fuck were they doing? What the fuck were they doing?
craft, so to leave a project before even seeing its release came
all
off
this
as
shit
abnormal,
into WoW. That's
as
what
many
they
feared
done.
that something was deeply wrong with Blizzard behind closed doors. And prior to this, another industry veteran since its release in 2004, Alex Afrasiabi, would also quietly drop from the company in June of 2020. The manner of which he moved on, however, was also abnormal. As had been customary with the more recognized veterans of the company taking their leave, there was no farewell post, nor even an acknowledgement by Blizzard, though the true reason for his departure would soon become clear.
So-called cube crawls, in which male employees apparently drink a lot of alcohol as they crawl through their way through the cubicles, often engaging in inappropriate behavior toward female employees. The agency saying it seeks, among other remedies, pay adjustments.
On July 23rd, 2021, Activision Blizzard once again became the center of national news as the world would learn the details of a 2-year investigation and lawsuit by the state of California of continuous sexual misconduct and discrimination of their employees. The investigation alleges that female employees in particular were underpaid and subjected to regular sexual harassment by coworkers and superiors. In the report, it was revealed that one employee ultimately committed suicide during a company vacation. This would occur after pictures of her vagina had allegedly been passed around a company party. The investigation also described cube crawls, where employees would become intoxicated and prowl to the workplace, subjecting coworkers to unwanted sexual advances, lewd behavior, and make inappropriate comments about rape and other intrusive or demeaning behavior. The news shocked the Blizzard community and served as the final straw for many as players and content creators began to migrate away, favoring other MMOs such as Final Fantasy XIV. Activision Blizzard's response would be swift and attempted to mitigate the allegations, stating that the DFEH, the plaintiff in the lawsuit, had distorted their claims and had rushed to file an inaccurate complaint, and that they were sickened and found the manner of which they investigated and reported to be reprehensible, referring specifically that the employee's suicide had no bearing on the case. The response was quickly deemed tone-deaf by onlookers and employees alike, who staged a walkout in protest of the allegations and the cold response by their employer. Shortly after, Activision CEO Bobby Kotick also denounced the response, stating that it was tone-deaf and that fair and respectful treatment in the workplace was of the utmost importance. Not long after, he would hire a firm made famous for union busting for Amazon to investigate their HR practices. Months later, it was revealed that it was he who had originally drafted the initial response, and having another executive sign it in her name, that is the very same one that he denounced. It was also revealed that he had prior knowledge of several sexual assault cases in the workplace and settling them out of court.
Isn't Bobby Kotick out? Like, he's gone? A lot of these people all got fired and are gone, right? And have been sued?
To make them public. In one instance, he threatened the life of one of his assistants. In response of this news being made public, he would reiterate his commitment to the safety and equality of his employees.
Anyone who doubts my conviction to be the most welcoming and inclusive workplace doesn't really appreciate how important this is to me.
In August, the DFEH accused Activision Blizzard of destroying documents relevant to the investigation in violation of their legal obligation to not tamper with evidence of an ongoing lawsuit, though this claim would be quickly denied by an Activision Blizzard spokesperson. Pictures and conversations relating to the Cosby Suite were also leaked, the nickname for Afrasiabi's hotel room from BlizzCon 2013, after the former comedian Bill Cosby, who had at that point faced multiple accusations of date rape. In an internal email, President J. Allen Brack stated his respect and care for equal treatment, and that Gloria Steinem, a well-known activist for women's rights, was a revered name in his household, having failed to grind the reputation to reach exalted, despite being human and having the diplomacy racial. What a casual. The response wasn't received very well for some reason, and shortly after, he would step down as president, ending his near 3-year tenure, and was replaced with a 2-person team, Jen O'Neill and Mike Ybarra, the former of whom would announce her departure just 3 months later, stating in an email to Activision's legal team of her lack of faith of their ability to change, and that she herself faced sexual harassment earlier in her career at Activision. She also revealed that she was being paid less than her co-leader, and that although equal pay was negotiated by both she and Mike Ybarra, it was only offered to her after she announced her resignation. She also described attending a 2007 party with Bobby Kotick, where scantily clad women danced on stripper poles.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go build my own
game dev studio
with blackjack and hookers.
As for Mike Ybarra, he would quickly come under controversy not long after his new position for a tweet advertising selling raid carries for gold. While this isn't against the game's terms of service, it remains to be a controversial point within the World of Warcraft community, as it edges the line of pay to win due to the player's ability to purchase gold with real money. As details of the investigation unfolded, many employees would quit or be fired, including senior game designer Jonathan LeCraft, the lead level designer of Diablo 4, a level designer of World of Warcraft, as well as the inspiration for the Overwatch character, Jesse McCree, and Diablo 4's game director, Luis Barriga, was also revealed to no longer be a part of Blizzard, leaving the upcoming action RPG without two critical leaders in the middle of its development. In response to McCree's involvement in the scandal, it was announced that the character McCree would be renamed, and that once again, actions would speak louder than words.
In the 5 gifted.
Blizzard at this point would also begin a series of in-game changes, such as removing items and references they deemed to be inappropriate given the circumstances, such as changing pictures of women into fruit. In-game joke emotes that were deemed to be highly controversial would also be removed. If there are any children in the room right now, I advise you at this point to cover their ears.
To fart in the tub.
Amidst the lawsuit, as tensions were at an all-time high, a senior systems designer of World of Warcraft revealed that almost no work is being done as the lawsuit was unfolding. This sparked outrage among the player base as they learned that they were paying for content that was no longer being developed in an expansion which had already seen updates at a sluggish pace. In response to the backlash, a senior game producer labeled those complaining as part of the problem, as employees continued lashing out and placing blame on their players and community figures. Blizzard would see a major restructuring of their teams during this time, as these employees either quit or were fired, many of which holding important positions in games that were in mid-development, causing major delays in production. In November of 2021, it was revealed by Blizzard Chief Financial Officer Armin Zerza that the company isn't planning to include both Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4 in their 2022 financial outlook report, indicating that neither release will see their debut in all of 2022 due to delays in development. As a result, financially, they would suffer their worst loss in 13 years, as stock prices fell by more than 14% in a single day, bringing its year-to-date losses to 25%. In December, employees revealed suspicions that their breast milk was being stolen. Nursing mothers would label and store packages of breast milk in the break room refrigerator, and when retrieving it later, would find that some or all of the milk would be missing, while other items in the refrigerator would remain undisturbed. Though as of this video, no evidence exists of the alleged protein-rich caper. When reached out for comment, an Activision Blizzard spokesperson replied, stating that there's no use crying over spilt milk. Speaking of milking, Blizzard would also increase focus on microtransaction offers, including mounts, pets, and cosmetic outfits, often seen.
Guys, this has been a brutal last 10 minutes here. Jesus Christ, as a WoW fanatic, this is definitely the lowest point of the Blizzard history. Jesus Christ. It turns around. Do things get better here? All these fucking idiots got fired, right? They fired all these clowns. I mean, dude, this was... I forgot how insane that was. I forgot. I feel like I was used to be getting, like... People were hating WoW streamers for a while there. That was another thing, too. It gets better, so everything is getting better. That was just a really dark time for Blizzard, bro. Holy shit.
Seem to be vastly superior to...
Dude, +2, like... I mean, this shit is terrible. But do you guys think stuff like that was happening at other game companies? I feel like I remember I was sitting there and that shit happened at Blizzard, and every Blizzard streamer, every Blizzard player was just looked at as a terrible human being. And I was literally like, dude, how the hell, of all the people it could happen to, it's Blizzard. Like, I feel like that shit was happening everywhere in all sorts of corporations. Jesus, bro. Satch in that prime. I feel like that has to happen in a lot of places, which is awful.
Those acquirable in-game.
All right, we need some good energy. We got to turn this around. I love that cat mount.
Superior to those acquirable.
Guys, this is dislike botting, bro. This shit is not real. There's no way. 700 likes to 9k dislikes. This is one of the best mounts in the game. Nah, there's no way that's legitimate. There's no way that's real. This is guys, this is the great cat mount.
in-game.
Barry Mount.
Their
Look at
prices
that.
would also be criticized, as their highest
That ain't
package
real.
would demand a price tag of $55, nearly matching that of a full AAA release, as onlookers reacted with awe at the lack of awareness or care that Blizzard showed to its community and image. As of this video, the results of the lawsuit are pending, but regardless of the outcome, it'll surely stand out as one of the darkest moments in the company's history. One that's becoming increasingly difficult to break out of, as scrutiny remains to be at an all-time high due to the destroyed trust between they and their community. As a result, a situation has been created where any flinch, positive or negative, is met with dominating pessimism. Employees...
Dude, it was funny when we were doing the shoot. I guess this happens in a lot of games, but like when... Holy shit.
Daily suffer abuse, not only from the outside,
We have to get
but
to a
as
better part of the
recently
video,
discovered, also from the inside. Today, they stare down the seemingly insurmountable task of repairing the damage caused to their relationship with their community, with each passing day, their environment representing a battlefield more so than that of a game development studio. While this itself is an unfair situation, many deem it a consequence of casting aside the goodwill of their player base consistently over the course of 3 tumultuous years. In the midst of the scandal, it was announced that BlizzCon was cancelled for the year of 2022 and that it would see a major restructuring if and when it returns. Initially, a heavily community-focused innovator with franchises that redefined genres, now leaves behind a sullied and controversial legacy in one of the most jarring and unforeseen falls in game development history. Quarterly reports show a consistent downward trend of active
I still
users,
can't believe
but
that
at the
Cosby
same
picture,
time,
bro. That is so
record-breaking revenue
ridiculous.
as patience and
Fine, you can
goodwill
let
are
yourself-
continuously traded away for short-term
Great cat.
financial profit. Just as how it breathed life into the genre with its birth in 2004, so too does it with its decline in the modern year. Its fall giving rise to a new generation of MMOs eager to claim the crown it once wore with pride and ambition. As players, community figures, and employees depart in record numbers, a particularly iconic phrase of theirs is seen to be more and more prophetic with each passing day. No king rules forever.
Alright, where's the turnaround happen?
We are going to offer a level 58 boost for purchase, but it does come with
Wait,
some
what the
restrictions. So it's
fuck?
going to be 1 per account. It's not going to be usable on Blood Elf or
What the fuck?
Hey, boss, now that you're done with your video game, and I don't mean to rush you or nothing, but we got a lot of people waiting to be sentenced to their eternal afterlife.
Send them in.
The state of California is suing video game company Activision Blizzard for sexual harassment and discrimination.
They basically suspended and took away $10,000 and his prize money.
Anyone who doubts my conviction to be the most welcoming and inclusive workplace doesn't really appreciate how important this is to me.
I don't want to look like a senior. I really don't.
We failed in our purpose. And for that, I am sorry. I accept accountability.
And the community is full of a bunch of broken-hearted people who feel alone and are now feeling weird because they're stuck between a weird spot of supporting the company that makes the game and not wanting to support these weird fucking ass grabbers.
Well, interestingly, the board of directors of Activision rallying to Mr. Kodak's side almost immediately.
At last. You rules forever, my son. I see only darkness.
How was this video, guys? A lot of great moments in the video. A lot of some horrible moments at the end, guys. I would say majority of the video was actually pretty great. And then there was just that really dark time in Blizzard where shit was going bad, but things have been back on the up. Things have been back on the up. W video, that was the longest reaction we've ever done in our lives. That was Zaryu style, bro. Jesus. guys. We're at